Chapter 1460. It wasn't their strength or battle prowess that was lacking, but the pressure from their godheads. Although Chen Hao's godhead pressure seemed insignificant, Ning Jing, Miao Xian, and the others had also felt it when Chen Hao fought against Gu Xian. It was indeed terrifying, but seeing that Chen Hao could withstand it, they felt that they could do the same. What they didn't know was that what they felt was merely the aftermath. When they faced it in person, it was a completely different matter. Just like when Shi Chao had used his godhead pressure on the 100 disciples of the Dehua Institute, other than Chen Hao, who else could withstand it? In fact, most of the geniuses who thought they were not much weaker than Chen Hao would think they could withstand it. It was also because of this that Ning Jing did not listen to Chen Hao's suggestion to admit defeat when she failed to defeat Song Longyuan after executing the Daoist crystal jade palm that she had comprehended in Chen Hao's space. Hence, she couldn't do so even though she wanted to. If it weren't for Chen Hao, she would be dead by now. Understood. Qing Yang replied. Now that he had obtained a second life and returned to the top 10, he was even stronger than before. This was especially true after cultivating in Chen Hao's mind for over 200 years. Just like Ning Jing, he had also learned a supreme technique from the palace that was on par with the Daoist crystal jade palm. Of course, this was because Chen Hao had taken special care of these geniuses who had entered the top 10, including Miao Xian and Chen Nan, who had entered the top 10 in the Grand Mist Supremacy realm. This was because Chen Hao knew how powerful the soul of all living beings was. Unfortunately, even though Chen Hao had spared no effort to help Qing Yang was still defeated by the powerful Su Junfeng. Moreover, Su Junfeng had not even used his godhead's pressure. The third match was between Miao Xian and Li Yuan. Everyone already knew about the relationship between these two, thus, it was not out of everyone's expectations. Miao Xian did not even enter the arena and directly admitted defeat. Miao Xian more or less sighed in her heart. Before the start of the battle, how could she have expected such a result? No matter how high her estimation of that damn fatty was, it was impossible for him to be this powerful. All this time, she had thought that he was inferior to her. However, the truth was that she was far inferior to him. The fourth match, Tang Haoyin against Zhang Yuanzhao. Both of them were confirmed to be reincarnated immortal emperors. Since the beginning of the top 10 ranking competition, this was the first battle between the spirits of all living things, and it was indeed exciting beyond everyone's expectations. Regardless of whether it was close combat, the collision of powerful divine skills, or the collision of godheads, it could all be described as earth-shattering. It made the practitioners of the great world of Xiandi feel refreshed and intoxicated as they watched. This was an evenly matched battle. In the end, Zhang Yuanzhao lost, and Tang Haoyin won with a slight advantage. Only the spirits of all things against the spirits of all things is a fair battle. Miao Xian, Qing Yang, and Ning Jing were unfair to the spirits of 10,000 creatures. The pressure from the godheads was like an imperial sword hanging over their heads. It was too intimidating. As for this old man, as Chen Hao pondered in his heart, he couldn't help but look at Xiao Jiutian, who was about to enter the arena. He looks quite confident. With the state of mind and willpower of a half-step immortal emperor, perhaps the pressure from the godheads wouldn't affect him. After all, the pressure from the godheads is also limited by the spirits of all things' own realm. As if he felt Chen Hao's gaze, Xiao Jiutian turned his head slightly and looked at him provocatively. He said proudly, "I hope you won't be scared out of your wits by my strength." After he finished speaking, he flew directly into the arena. The reason why he was uncharacteristically provoking everyone was to provoke them into a bloody battle with him. That way, it would be easier for him to kill them. He wanted to obtain more godheads, the more the better. Every godhead was a type of Dao. Even if it wasn't his own Dao, it could inspire and perfect his own Dao. At the same time, in order to be the first to become an immortal emperor, it was inevitable to stop these spirits of all things. This was because he was very clear about the significance of being the first to become an immortal emperor. That was to seize the heaven's will. The first to become an immortal emperor would obtain the power to truly control the great world of Xiandi and integrate with the supreme heavenly law of the great world of Xiandi. With him, the cultivators in the great world of Xiandi would be suppressed by his heaven's will. Unless he ascended to the immortal world, no one else would be able to become an immortal emperor. This was the law that a great thousand world could only have one immortal emperor. Of course, other cultivators could also choose to become an immortal emperor in other great thousand worlds after climbing the emperor's celestial stairway. However, the stronger the great thousand world, the stronger the first to become an immortal emperor. This was without a doubt because it was the supreme heavenly law of the great thousand world. As far as the Star River King knew, at least for now, there was no great thousand world that was stronger than the great world of Xiandi. Wei Wufa's expression was slightly dignified, but he was not afraid. He also soared into the sky and entered the arena. Take out your godhead, or you will die very quickly. Xiao Jiutian stood with his hands behind his back and stared at Wei Wufa disdainfully. Although Wei Wufa was the wisest of all things, his aura was obviously the weakest among the top 10. It did not seem like he was hiding his strength. At this moment, his dignified expression was more than enough to prove this point. Since you asked for it, I will fulfill your wish. Wei Wufa was very straightforward, or it could be said that he understood the situation and directly took out his godhead. He did not want to suffer because of his pride. Although Xiao Jiutian was not the wisest of all things reincarnated as an immortal emperor, at this moment his powerful aura was much stronger than Ning Jing and Qin Yang. Therefore, Wei Wufa was very clear that he was no match for Xiao Jiutian with absolute strength. One had to admit that as one of the top geniuses in the great world of Xiandi, even if Xiao Jiutian was born in the immortal world, he would definitely be an extremely rare genius. Boom! The pressure of the godhead spread out in an instant and surged towards Xiao Jiutian. Sky Silkworm 9 transformations, 9 returned to 1. Chi chi chi, Xiao Jiutian shouted softly, and his figure suddenly turned into a series of afterimages. In an instant, he had completed the Sky Silkworm 9 transformations. That speed, that profound, that proficiency, it was unknown how many times stronger than Xianxia. He had completed the Sky Silkworm 9 transformations, one of the Xiao family's strongest techniques, in an instant. His aura had increased by more than 10 times. Ah! What terrifying strength! This is not as simple as cultivating the Sky Silkworm 9 transformations to the highest realm. He is indeed the #1 genius of the Xiao family. Countless people exclaimed in surprise. Especially the members of the Xiao family who were familiar with Xiao Jiutian, including Xianxia, were no exception. Even she did not know when Xiao Jiutian had cultivated the Sky Silkworm 9 transformations to such a realm. In fact, among all the spectators except for Qin Hao, whose perception was unimaginably terrifying, no one knew that Xiao Jiutian was not the real Xiao Jiutian at this moment. Chapter 1461. Lose. Boom. Xiao Jiutian let out a loud shout, and a terrifying energy suddenly burst out. It was like a saber and a sword, and the saber and sword weaved a net, covering the sky and covering the sun. Ah! Wei Wufa screamed in horror. At this moment, he frantically activated the pressure of his godhead and raised his strength to the extreme. He faced Xiao Jiutian's attack that completely enveloped him and made it impossible for him to dodge. He did not expect this. Although Xiao Jiutian's 9 transformations of the heavenly silkworm could not enter his eyes, Xiao Jiutian had already reached the extreme of the Daoist Golden Wonderland. More importantly, Xiao Jiutian's absolute strength was much stronger than his. Moreover, Xiao Jiutian was fast. In the world of martial arts, only speed was invincible. No matter how powerful a martial art was, if it was executed too slowly, it would only be useless in a battle. Especially in a battle of life and death, it would not be of much use. On the contrary, if one's speed reached a certain level, even the simplest attack without any mystery could produce an incredible effect. Not to mention the premise of absolute strength. Wei Wufa was the reincarnation of an immortal emperor. The moment Xiao Jiutian's attack enveloped him, his pupils shrank and he was terrified. At this moment, he knew that he, who had just fully awakened, would not be able to withstand this attack. He was doomed in this life. With such a clear understanding, despite his fear and reluctance, The Celestial Emperor's strong mental fortitude allowed him to make a choice at the first moment. Roar! A shrill roar burst out from Wei Wufa's mouth. Immediately, a terrifying fluctuation appeared in his essence, qi, and spirit. Before the crowd could think, he exploded with a boom. Self-detonation. However, the flesh and blood that burst out did not turn into dust, nor did it scatter. Instead, it blasted toward Xiao Jiutian. So ruthless! Countless people exclaimed in shock. Watch out! The Xiao family and Xiao Jiutian supporters were even more shocked at this moment. Their eyes widened as they shouted toward the arena. No one expected that the reincarnation of the Celestial Emperor, Wei Wufa, would decisively self-detonate before the outcome of the battle was decided. Even if he was restricted by his realm, he was still the reincarnation of the Celestial Emperor. Both his body and soul had extremely terrifying powers sealed within them. These powers should have been unsealed as his realm increased, but now, they had completely self-detonated. Quick! Seal for me! The terrifying fluctuations made the experts on the rostrum, especially the Celestial River King, unable to remain calm. At his command, countless experts of the true Immortal King realm responded and attacked. Even King Ying, Chen Taishu, and King Luoying were no exception. It was not that they listened to King Xinghe's words, but rather, it was because of the terrifying fluctuations. If they allowed it to explode, the seal of the arena would not be able to stop it at all. On the deer-chasing peak, especially the young cultivators near the front, they would probably be reduced to ashes. Rumble! In the end, the terrifying explosions still spread out. Even though many true immortal kings had already taken action, it was a pity that they were too hasty and couldn't completely seal it. The seal of the arena was torn apart and the terrifying energy turbulence caused the entire Zhilu Peak to fall into chaos. Some of the weaker and slower young disciples of the Daoist Golden Wonderland were directly turned into ashes by the energy turbulence. A golden stream of light suddenly shot into the sky from the arena at an astonishing speed. Where do you think you're going? The Celestial River King gave out an angry roar and chased after him with a cheese sound. Godhood! That's Wei Wufa's godhead. Suddenly, many people understood what was going on. Wei Wufa had obviously detonated himself in exchange for the godhead's escape. No one had expected such a turn of events. While everyone was staring at the void and watching King Xinghe chase after Wei Wufa's godhead, no one noticed that Chen Hao, who was sitting in the top 10, trembled slightly. His pitch-black eyes had completely lost their color in 2 breaths of time, like a puppet that had lost its soul. But in just 2 breaths of time, he returned to normal, as if nothing had happened. But, seeing that he was about to catch up with Wei Wufa's godhead, the Celestial River King who had obtained his first godhead was stunned. The golden godhead seemed to have penetrated the 9 heavens and 10 earths in an instant and disappeared without a trace. Not even the slightest aura could be detected. How is this possible? How is this possible? The Celestial River King's face was extremely ugly, unable to accept such a reality. Originally, he thought that by integrating his life into Xiao Jiutian's soul palace and controlling Xiao Jiutian, he could easily obtain the godheads of all the spirits of all things in the top 10. No one would be his opponent. Of course, the premise was that no one chose to admit defeat. But now, in his first battle, and against the weakest spirit of all things, he had suffered a double loss. Xiao Jiutian turned into ashes. Yes, the self-detonation of a fully awakened spirit of all things, targeting Xiao Jiutian alone in the narrow space of the arena. How could Xiao Jiutian resist it? There was no suspense at all. Xiao Jiutian turned into ashes, including the Celestial River King's life. The Celestial River King, who knew that there was no turning back, thought that obtaining Wei Wufa's godhead was more or less a comfort, at least enough to make up for the loss of his life. But now, the godhead was gone. Moreover, it was impossible to obtain another godhead in the top 10 ranking competition, because Xiao Jiutian was dead. Looking up at the endless void, the Celestial River King's expression became extremely ferocious and terrifying after a short moment of sluggishness. For many years, Ever since Queen Ying lost her primordial Yin body, he had never been as angry as he was today. But as the strongest person in the great world of Xiandi, he could not burst out unscrupulously at this time. All of this stemmed from his wrong estimation of the strength of the spirits of all things. He underestimated them. The reason why he underestimated them was because Chen Hao seemed to have no difficulty in killing the spirits of all things and suppressing the godheads, at least in the eyes of a half-step immortal emperor like him. But now, he understood that it was Chen Hao who was relaxed. The strength of the spirits of all things was not something that the geniuses of the Great Thousand World could contend with. Even if he was a half-step immortal emperor and sealed in the Daoist Golden Wonderland, he could not do so. The only explanation was that, as previously speculated, Chen Hao himself was a more powerful spirit of all things. That was why he was so relaxed. Xiao Zhetian is dead, his body and soul are destroyed. Wei Wufa is also dead, but Wei Wufa's godhead escaped. He just died in this life. The reincarnation of an immortal emperor is indeed the reincarnation of an immortal emperor. Indeed, we mortals cannot contend with him, no matter how talented we are. What a pity! Countless people felt sorry for Xiao Zhetian. Chapter 1462. Xiao Zhetian's arrogant look was still fresh in their minds, but now it had turned into nothingness. This was the top genius of the great world of Xiandi, yet he died just like that. Anyone would feel that it was a pity, let alone the Xiao clan. Resurrection. If Li Yuan can resurrect Qin Yang, he can naturally resurrect Xiao Zhetian. Don't joke around. If he could resurrect, would the celestial river king's face be so ugly? Without the Hongmeng Qi shield, Xiao Zhetian's aura, flesh, and blood were mostly devoured by Wei Wufa's godhead. How could there be anything left? Indeed. This was completely different from Qin Yang's situation. Whether Chen Hao helped or not, even if he did, he could not resurrect Xiao Zhetian. Similarly, even if Xiao Zhetian's aura was not devoured and dissipated, Chen Hao could resurrect Xiao Zhetian, but the celestial river king had to consider whether to resurrect him or not. Because once Chen Hao resurrected Xiao Zhetian, he would know that Xiao Zhetian was no longer a pure Xiao Zhetian, but a life of the celestial river king. If the world knew about this, the celestial river king would probably be despised by everyone. How could he still have the face to sit on the throne of the great world of Xiandi? How could he condense the strongest destiny of the great world of Xiandi? The celestial river king was, after all, the celestial river king. After a brief loss of composure, he immediately adjusted and returned to the rostrum, directly signaling the competition to continue. After one round, 2 people died, leaving only 8 people. Li Yuan, Miao Xian, Qin Yang, Ning Jing, Song Longyuan, Su Junfeng, Tang Haoyan, and Zhang Yuanzhao. In the second round, the opponents were still decided by drawing lots. If the opponents were drawn again, they would draw lots again. The following rounds were the same. Although it was a little troublesome, it was undoubtedly the fairest for all the contestants. Who to fight first, who to fight next, and who to fight next were all very important for the contestants who hid their strength. Among the 8, only Miao Xian, Qin Yang, and Ning Jing were not the reincarnation of an immortal emperor. After the first round, there was no doubt that the 3 of them were no match for the spirits of all existences. If the strongest, Xiao Zhetian, couldn't beat the weakest, Wei Wufa, then how could they be a match for Zhang Longyuan's group? The results of the draw quickly came out. The second round. First match, Li Yuan versus Tang Haoyan. Second match, Miao Xian versus Zhang Yuanzhao. Third match, Qin Yang versus Zhang Longyuan. Fourth match, Su Junfeng versus Ning Jing. In the first match, what no one had expected was that Tang Haoyan, the soul of all creation, had admitted defeat without even stepping onto the arena. Clearly, Chen Hao, who had defeated Gu Xian, had made Tang Haoyan timid. The following 3 matches confirmed everyone's guess. Although Miao Xian, Qin Yang, and Ning Jing did not admit defeat in advance, the 3 of them were unable to win. Even if Miao Xian was up against the weakest Zhang Yuanzhao, it was useless. When Zhang Yuanzhao summoned his godhead, he easily secured victory. Needless to say, Only Qin Yang and Ning Jing were up against the powerful Cang Longyuan and Su Junfeng. Of course, with Chen Hao's reminder and Xiao Jiutian's lesson, the two of them only lost in a daunting experience. In the third round, Chen Hao drew Qin Yang, who admitted defeat. Miao Xian drew Cang Longyuan, who lost. Ning Jing drew Tang Haoyan, who lost. Zhan Yuanzhao drew Su Junfeng, who also chose to admit defeat. This was beyond everyone's expectations. It seems like the only matches worth looking forward to are the ones between Li Yuan, Cang Longyuan, and Su Junfeng. These are the top three. The fourth is Tang Haoyan, who has already defeated Zhan Yuanzhao. The fifth is Zhan Yuanzhao. Miao Xian, Ning Jing, and Qin Yang are at the bottom. Between the three of them, Miao Xian's strength is better. She should be able to get sixth. Qin Yang is seventh, Ning Jing is eighth. When the lots for the fourth round were being drawn, everyone was discussing. At this point, the situation of the competition had begun to become clear. The only thing that could not be determined was the strongest three, Li Yuan, Cang Longyuan, and Su Junfeng. Without a doubt, this was the battle that everyone was looking forward to the most. The fourth round, the first match, Su Junfeng versus Cang Longyuan. The second match, Chen Hao versus Zhan Yuanzhao. The third match, Tang Haoyan versus Qin Yang. The fourth match, Miao Xian versus Ning Jing. Su Junfeng and Cang Longyuan, please stay and start the first match. This time, as soon as the host finished speaking, the entire martial arts arena and even the immortal world exploded. It's finally the battle between the strongest. Yes, who do you think will win? It should be Cang Longyuan. He is the reincarnation of the immortal world's heavenly dragon clan's immortal emperor. Moreover, from the looks of it, even if he is not a heavenly venerable, his battle prowess should be stronger than the reincarnation of heavenly venerable Gu Xian. Therefore, I feel that Cang Longyuan has a higher chance of winning. I feel that Su Junfeng has a higher chance of winning. Until now, he has not revealed too much. Perhaps, he has hidden his strength a little deeper. Cang Longyuan versus Su Junfeng, who would win? Only by fighting would they know. Even Chen Hao, whose perception ability was monstrous to a terrifying degree, could not give a definite answer. Both of them still had some hidden strength. This was something that Chen Hao could be sure of. However, some things could not be seen through to determine who was stronger. I didn't expect the two of us to meet first. This is also good. Li Yuan is able to suppress in Heavenly Venerable's godhead. To you and me, he should be our number one opponent. It's only logical to deal with him after we deal with you. The tall and mighty Cang Longyuan stood with his hands behind his back, looking arrogantly at Su Junfeng opposite him as he spoke in a solemn voice. How well said. Dealing with you before dealing with him is also the result I want. Su Junfeng laughed loudly in disdain. At this moment, the aura around him fluctuated violently. You're very confident. You too. Since that's the case, do you dare to bet with me? Why wouldn't I dare? No matter what you bet, I, Su Junfeng, will accept it. Su Junfeng said without hesitation. In a battle between experts, no matter what, one could not lose to the other in terms of momentum. Very good. You said it yourself. The loser will acknowledge the winner as his master and follow him forever. Do you dare? Cang Longyuan looked straight at Su Junfeng as he spoke in a solemn voice. Exactly what I want. The heavenly venerable heavenly dragon mount delivered itself to my doorstep. How could I not accept it? However, words alone are not enough. Let's sign a contract. You don't have any objections, right? Su Junfeng said in an imposing manner. Naturally, I don't have any objections. Cang Longyuan answered. However, I'm not talking about signing a contract with the supreme law of the great world of Xiandi. The supreme law here can't bind us. Now, the gate of the immortal world has been loosened. Since we're going to sign a contract, we'll communicate with the immortal world and sign it with the supreme law of the upper three heavens of the immortal world. Do you dare? Su Junfeng's eyes shone brightly as his expression became more and more arrogant. Upper three heavens of the immortal world? What does that mean? At this moment, countless cultivators were shocked by Su Junfeng's words. Even some reincarnated immortal emperors and spirits of all living things were stunned. In their knowledge, they only knew about the immortal world. However, Su Juanfeng's words clearly indicated that the immortal world also had a division of planes. This was something that some spirits of all living things did not know and had never heard of. Chapter 1463. Song Longyuan's expression changed slightly when he heard Su Juanfeng's words. He stared at Su Junfeng for a few seconds before he said, "Are you from Shangsenan? What do you think? Cut the crap, just say yes or no." Su Junfeng said with a smile. Good, very good. I didn't expect that I, Song Longyuan, would misjudge you. However, since I'm the one who suggested it, why should I be afraid? Come on. Song Longyuan's eyes flashed with a trace of viciousness as he said suddenly. As soon as he finished speaking, his glabella suddenly opened up and he looked up at the endless void. At this point he no longer had a way out. Very good. Su Junfeng also activated his glabella and did the same thing as Song Longyuan. Two rays of golden holy light shot up into the sky and blended together. They tore the sky apart and connected the 9 heavens and 10 lands. Buzz, 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 buzz. Golden halos like ripples penetrated the sky and spread in all directions. A moment later, dazzling celestial light came from the depths of the endless void and condensed into chains of order. They entered the glabella of Su Junfeng and Song Longyuan at the same time. Immediately, the two of them were surrounded by celestial qi and rays of light. Buzz. Immediately, their bodies shook and all the strange phenomena disappeared. The contract was completed. Done. Song Longyuan, from now on, you're my, Su Juanfeng's, battle pet. Show your true form and be obedient. Dream on. You want my heavenly dragon bloodline to be your ride? Do you think you're worthy? You're just from Shangsantian. My heavenly dragon bloodline looks down on the lower 3 heavens, roams the middle 3 heavens, and communicates with Shangsantian. If it weren't for the war of the 3 realms, we would be an overlord in Shangsenan. You're more suitable to be my servant. Come on, let's talk with strength. I'll let you know that you're just a piece of trash in front of me. Song Longyuan looked up to the sky and roared. The power of the heavenly dragon suddenly rolled out. His body instantly revealed the true form of the heavenly dragon, which covered the sky and the sun. Song Longyuan's words gave the other reincarnated immortal emperors and the cultivators of the great world of Xiandi a piece of information. It seemed like the immortal world was divided into the lower 3 heavens, middle 3 heavens, and upper 3 heavens, which corresponded to the 9 heavens. This was something that none of the reincarnated immortal emperors present knew about. So that's how it is. I finally understood why there were only a few dozen celestial venerables in the vast and boundless immortal world. The immortal world I'm in is merely the lower 3 heavens. Tang Haotian said in shock. At this moment, he finally understood why Song Longyuan and Su Junfeng did not even care about heavenly sovereign Gu Xian. Crack. A huge dragon breath spewed out from the sky dragon's bloody mouth. It was many times stronger than when it dealt with Ning Jing. It was like a terrifying heavenly thunder, blasting towards Su Junfeng. Open! Su Junfeng, whose battle intent had risen to a terrifying level, faced such a terrifying attack. His expression did not change in the slightest. Even the hands behind his back did not move in the slightest. He only opened his lips slightly and coldly spat out the word, open. Soon after, everyone saw an unbelievable scene. Everyone, including Chen Hao, widened their eyes in shock. An incomparably huge door appeared out of thin air in front of Su Junfeng. The pitch-black round door looked like a black sun at a glance. When one looked at it carefully, one's mind seemed to be swallowed by it. There were endless runes, as if they were formed by indescribably powerful ancient beasts. It was also at this moment that the roar of a ferocious beast that caused one's heart to turn cold burst out from the pitch-black door. Everyone's eyes seemed to have penetrated the pitch-black exterior and saw another world. The world of ancient ferocious beasts was filled with an endless number of ancient ferocious beasts. The aura of each of them was so terrifying that it was indescribable. Heavenly beasts. That was the world of heavenly beasts. Heavenly beasts were existences that were stronger than ordinary heavenly sovereigns. At the same time, endless ancient, mysterious, and incomparably complicated runes rolled out from the pitch-black door, condensing into pitch-black chains that directly locked onto the true form of the sky dragon that was already roaming in the void. Impossible, impossible, how can you have the heavenly beast chaos diagram? How can it be? You despicable and shameless fellow, if you have the guts, defeat me with your strength. I can't accept this. I can't accept this. Terrified, mournful, and unwilling roars came from Cang Longyuan's huge dragon head. Unfortunately, the pitch-black door and pitch-black chains completely locked onto his body and soul. At this moment, how was he still the insufferably arrogant sky dragon? It gave people the feeling that in front of this pitch-black door, Cang Longyuan was an ant that could be easily grasped in the hand and trampled on at will. Heavenly Beast Chaos Diagram. Heavenly Beast Chaos Diagram. Zhan Yuanzhao, Tang Haoyan, Kong Ying, and the rest of the spirits of all beings that were reincarnated immortal emperors stared blankly at Cang Longyuan, who was bound by the pitch-black chains and shrunk until he was only a few 100 feet long. He crawled in front of Su Junfeng and muttered the words, Heavenly Beast Chaos Diagram, repeatedly. They did not know the division of planes in the immortal world because their realms had never reached the corresponding realm. In the immortal world with its strict hierarchy and perfect laws, they were not qualified to know. However, they had heard of the 10 great chaos treasures of the immortal world. The Heavenly Beast Chaos Diagram was one of the 10 great chaos treasures that were born at the beginning of chaos. It was a natural treasure that could not be refined. The Heavenly Beast Chaos Diagram was ranked last among the 10 great chaos treasures because it had a fatal flaw. It was only useful for beasts. Even the strongest heavenly beast could not resist it. However, apart from beasts, it was not very useful for humans, plants, and fairies in the immortal, demon, and celestial realms. If that was not the case, it would not be ranked last among the 10 great chaos treasures. However, even so, supreme-grade immortal artifacts were trash in front of it. However, before the Great War of the Three Realms, the Heavenly Beast Chaos Diagram and the other 9 great chaos treasures were basically legends. But now, it actually appeared in front of Cang Longyuan. Even though he had never seen it before, its aura and appearance were exactly the same as in the records. Especially the power that he was completely unable to resist, it made him immediately think of the legendary Heavenly Beast Chaos Diagram. The nemesis of beasts. Sky dragons were undoubtedly beasts. This was an unchangeable fact. This is the power of a chaos treasure. It is indeed powerful. The Sky Dragon Chariot. I, Su Junfeng, will also have the Sky Dragon Chariot one day. With the Heavenly Beast Chaos Diagram, this is just the beginning. Let's contract. Buzz. Su Junfeng pointed a finger and the contract rune bloomed with dazzling light. The contract came into effect. Then, he sat directly on Cang Longyuan's shrunken original form. Merge. Soon after, Su Junfeng called out again. Cang Longyuan immediately turned into streaks of resplendent light and merged into Su Junfeng's body. In the next moment, Su Junfeng's entire body was covered in a scale armor that shone with resplendent light. Cang Longyuan is now my battle pet. He will not be part of the next competition. However, you will be able to meet him in my next battle. MC, can you announce the results now? Chapter 1464. Until Su Junfeng's reminder, the true Immortal King stage host finally recovered from his shock and announced the result of the competition. At this point, 3 of the top 10 were gone, and only 7 were left. The second match was between Qin Hao and Zhan Yuanzhao. Although Tang Haoyan was slightly stronger than Wei Wufa, he was only slightly stronger. He could not be compared to the reincarnated heavenly venerable Gu Xian. At this moment, there was no need to doubt the cruelty of the competition. Even Tang Haoyan admitted defeat against Li Yuan. How could he still dare to fight against Jin Hao? Moreover, he had been Gu Xian's lackey before. Therefore, Zhang Yuanzhao did not hesitate and chose to admit defeat. Chen Hao was speechless, but there was nothing he could do. The third match was between Tang Haoyan and Qin Yang. The pressure of Tang Haoyan's godhead reappeared. As expected, Qin Yang lost again. There was nothing he could do. The fourth match was between Miao Xian and Ning Jing. Although this battle wasn't as exciting as the battle between Su Junfeng, Song Longyuan, and Chen Hao, it was still a battle between the same type of people. Moreover, it was a battle of equal strength. It was much more interesting than the previous two. In fact, the two experienced a wonderful and dangerous battle. In the end, Miao Xian defeated Ning Jing with a slight advantage. However, although Miao Xian won, she did not have the slightest joy. She was very clear that if she had not merged with Chen Hao for so many years, it would be difficult for her to defeat the number 1 Daoist Jingxian of Jade Maiden Palace, Ning Jing. The fusion of yin and yang in her subconscious had already left the scope of her subconscious and began to affect Miao Xian. The telepathy with Chen Hao was the best proof. In fact, when Miao Xian no longer rejected the feeling of Chen Hao in her subconscious, the yin and yang dual cultivation had already begun to take effect. However, to Miao Xian, this was just the beginning. The real improvement had yet to come. Otherwise, the effect of dual cultivation with Chen Hao for so many years would be a waste of Chen Hao's abnormal talent. The fifth round, the first match was between Chen Hao and Ning Jing. Ning Jing admitted defeat. The second match was between Zhang Yuanzhao and Qin Yang. Qin Yang admitted defeat. Facing as spiritual of all things with a godhead, Qin Yang no longer had any meaning in fighting. The third match was between Miao Xian and Su Junfeng. Miao Xian also chose to admit defeat. Tang Haoyan was alone. In the sixth round, the first match was between Ning Jing and Qin Yang. Neither side could do anything to the other. The second match was between Miao Xian and Tang Haoyan. Chen Hao and Su Junfeng had both fought against Zhang Yuanzhao before, so the third match was supposed to be between Chen Hao and Su Junfeng. However, since the battle between the two of them would definitely be the pinnacle battle of the Daoist Golden Wonderland, it was customary to leave it until the last match. Therefore, there were only 2 matches in the sixth round. In the seventh round, the first match was between Zhang Yuanzhao and Ning Jing. Ning Jing admitted defeat, thus ending their matches. The second match was between Qin Yang and Miao Xian. Qin Yang admitted defeat, thus ending their matches. The third match was between Tang Haoyan and Su Junfeng. Tang Haoyan admitted defeat, thus ending his matches. The final match was between Li Yuan and Su Junfeng. Li Yuan had cultivated the 9 lives profound art of the Celestial River King, but this was not important. What was more important was that all of his lives were monstrous geniuses, especially Qin Tianhe. Secondly, Li Yuan had killed the spirit of all beings Xichao. Thirdly, Li Yuan had defeated the reincarnated heavenly venerable Gu Xian and suppressed his godhead. How strong was Li Yuan exactly? Su Junfeng had not revealed his strength until the competition for the top 10 spots. Who would have thought that he could come this far? He came from the immortal world's upper 3 heavens. He had the legendary chaos treasure, the heavenly beast chaos diagram. He could easily turn the terrifying heavenly dragon into a battle pet. How strong was he now? A battle pet that had recognized its master was a part of its combat strength. Song Longyuan was capable of reaching the top in the first place, but he had been defeated by the chaos pattern of the heavenly beast. Anyway, Su Junfeng was fighting side by side with Song Longyuan. Could Chen Hao stop him? In the eyes of most people, Su Junfeng winning the first place was already a foregone conclusion. It was not that Chen Hao was not strong, but Su Junfeng was too strong. However, the countless experts present did not agree with Su Junfeng's high-profile actions. So what if he was the reincarnation of an almighty from the immortal world? He was now just the Daoist Golden Wonderland. He did not even understand the basic principle of an innocent man getting into trouble because of his wealth. That was one of the immortal world's top 10 chaos treasures. Without enough strength to protect it, how could it be exposed in front of others? Many experts were clear that the so-called rules, when there were enough benefits, were just fleeting clouds in front of a true expert. There was no restrictive effect at all. The most important point was that Su Junfeng was a lone, rootless duckweed, without any backing to protect him. They believed that after this competition, the Heavenly Beast Chaos Diagram would change owners. As for who would get it, it was hard to say. It depended on who was stronger, who acted faster. In short, it could be anyone on the rostrum. Because the burning gaze in his eyes could not be concealed. Li Yuan, Su Junfeng, please come to the stage. Without giving too much time to wait, the host's voice rose an octave. Although it was still a formal announcement, this time, the host's voice and eyes were faintly excited and excited. What kind of scene would the peak confrontation of the Daoist Golden Wonderland be like? The battle that countless people were looking forward to was finally going to be staged. In the top 10 contestant seats, after hearing the referee's words, Su Junfeng slowly got up. His face was filled with a faint and confident smile. After turning his head to look at Chen Hao, he said, "Don't say that you admit defeat directly. If that's the case, I'll be very disappointed." After Su Junfeng finished speaking, he directly rose into the air and stepped onto the stage under everyone's gaze. He stared proudly in the direction of Chen Hao. "What, do you really not dare to?" Seeing that Chen Hao still had no intention of getting up, Su Junfeng said again in a tone full of disdain and contempt. "Since you can't wait, it seems that you have victory in your hands? Don't worry, I won't admit defeat. I'm just thinking about one thing." Chen Hao's lips curled up slightly as he slowly got up. Buzz. As he spoke, his body shook and directly cut through the void and appeared on the stage. But fight, fight, fight. Fight, fight, fight. Li Yuan will win. Li Yuan will win. The silent crowd suddenly became restless with Chen Hao's appearance. Li Yuan did not admit defeat, which was undoubtedly the result that they wanted to see the most. In their opinion, Li Yuan's decision required courage. After all, he was facing the equivalent of Su Junfeng and Song Longyuan working together. Moreover, Su Junfeng had the Heavenly Beast Chaos Diagram. Even if it was ineffective against humans, how could Su Junfeng, who might have a Chaos Supreme Treasure, be simple? It could be said that even if Li Yuan chose to admit defeat directly, no one would be surprised at all. They would only be disappointed and disappointed. Now, Li Yuan was on the stage. Chapter 1465. The figure that stood proudly like a sword, the extraordinarily handsome face, and the calm and cool expression seemed to have no pressure at all. The soaring battle intent and the surging invincible aura were even stronger than when he faced Gu Xian. At this moment, Chen Hao gave people the feeling that he was still himself. No matter who he faced or how strong he was still the arrogant person who looked down on the world. Consider what? Bet? Li Yuan, I have to admit that I admire your courage. Bet that I love you too. Tell me, what do you want to bet? How do you want to bet? Su Junfeng laughed and looked at Chen Hao with a mocking gaze. The Heavenly Beast Chaos Diagram. Chen Hao smiled and said calmly, "The Heavenly Beast Chaos Diagram?" Su Junfeng was slightly surprised and then said disdainfully, "You should know what my Heavenly Beast Chaos Diagram is, right? It's one of the 10 legendary chaos treasures in the immortal world. You want to bet with me? Can you take out a treasure of the same level as his? What a joke. I have it. As for whether it's the same level as yours, I don't know, but I know that it's definitely not inferior to yours," Chen Hao said. "Haha, are you joking? If you have it, then show it to me. You can send a strand of divine thought into my mind and you'll know that I'm telling the truth." "Really? Then I really want to see it." Su Junfeng also suspected that Chen Hao was tricking him. Sending a strand of divine thought in to take a look would have negligible effect on him even if it was annihilated. Chen Hao was also very straightforward and directly opened the space between his eyebrows. At this moment, everyone was staring at Chen Hao with a puzzled, shocked, and curious expression. Could it be that he really had a treasure that was comparable to the Heavenly Beast Chaos Diagram? After a while, Su Junfeng's surprised and excited expression gave everyone the answer. What kind of treasure is that?" I don't know what it is exactly because I can't make it recognize me as its master. But I know that it's definitely an existence that surpasses the best immortal artifact. Because its aura is definitely not inferior to your heavenly beast chaos diagram. Well, since you've seen it, do you want to bet or not? Why should I believe you? It's in your mind, so even if you've already acknowledged it as your master, I don't know. Believe it or not. You don't have to bet, it doesn't matter. Chen Hao said. The reason why Chen Hao wanted to bet with Su Junfeng on the Heavenly Beast Chaos Diagram was because he had learned from the old god that although the Heavenly Beast Chaos Diagram only had power against heavenly beasts, the most important part of its name was the Chaos Diagram. It contained the original aura of the endless galaxy at the beginning of chaos. Although it was in chaos, through it, one only needed to lock onto one of the original auras to be able to sense the location of the galaxy that was related to that original aura. To an ordinary person, this was meaningless. However, to Chen Hao, it was significant. What would it mean if Chen Hao could find the familiar aura of Earth in the origin aura of the endless universe? Of course, Chen Hao also knew that it would not be easy to find Earth amidst the endless aura of the origin. However, since he knew about it, he had to give it a try. It was because of this that Chen Hao proposed the bet. The treasure that Chen Hao showed Su Junfeng was naturally the treasure guarded by the old god. It was also opened by the old god for Su Junfeng's divine thought. However, since Su Junfeng did not believe it, he could not force him. He could only give up. Don't bet? Why not? But we have to bet big. Bet big? Chen Hao frowned slightly. That's right. Since I can't be sure if you've refined it and acknowledged it as your master, let's bet our lives. In this case, it doesn't matter whether you've refined it or not. What do you say? Don't say that you don't dare. Crash. Su Junfeng's words caused an uproar among the crowd. Bet our lives. Chen Hao stared at Su Junfeng and murmured repeatedly. Immediately, he said in a low voice, "A life and death duel? No, that's too wasteful. Moreover, I don't think you and I can easily kill each other. What do you say? What I mean is, just like me and Song Longyuan, communicate with the upper three heavens of the immortal dimension and sign a contract. This way, we can kill two birds with one stone." All right. When he heard Su Junfeng, Chen Hao chose to agree without the slightest hesitation. This caused the already clamorous crowd to instantly seethe with excitement and be extremely shocked. Is he crazy? Too crazy. I can only say that the reincarnation of a great figure of the immortal dimension is too confident in himself. In my opinion, it's already inconceivable that Li Yuan dared to enter the arena to fight. Daring to take the initiative to propose a bet is even more exaggerated. Yet now, he's actually betting his life. This isn't as simple as confidence. In fact, it's also a battle of momentum. Since it's already come to this, no one will choose to back down. I think Li Yuan is probably doomed. To be honest, besides utilizing the Heavenly Beast Chaos Diagram, Su Junfeng hasn't exposed his true combat strength at all. More importantly, the powerful Song Longyuan is already his Heavenly Dragon battle pet. How can Li Yuan defeat him? Yeah, alas, I hope that Li Yuan will win. Although he's also the wisest of all living things, at least he's already joined our academy in the Great Thousand World. He's also considered one of us. Moreover, he has so many brothers, sisters, and cultivation companions. This Su Junfeng, I think he doesn't put anyone in his eyes at all. I feel the same way. Same, I support Li Yuan. I also hope that Li Yuan will win. He's been creating miracles all along the way from the University of Dahua. This time, I hope that he can continue to create miracles. In the buzzing discussion, almost all of the people were leaning towards supporting Chen Hao. Even if there were reasons given by the crowd, this phenomenon was more or less unbelievable. It could only be said that Chen Hao, who had returned to his original appearance, had a strong aura that could conquer people's hearts. It was so strong that it didn't matter whether it was a man or a woman, old or young. Because of this, most of the people were worried for Chen Hao. Even the women, brothers and sisters, as well as King Ying, King Sword and King Luoying, who knew that Chen Hao was abnormal, were a little worried. Although Qin Hao was strong, Su Junfeng was also unfathomable. Even they couldn't measure him, not to mention that he had turned Song Longyuan into his heavenly dragon battle pet. But although they were worried, they couldn't stop it, and they couldn't stop it. Chen Hao and Su Junfeng attacked at the same time. Just like Su Junfeng and Song Longyuan, they directly connected the 9 heavens and 10 earths, communicated with the celestial realm's celestial qi, and signed a supreme contract. Looking at the rolling celestial qi and Tao principles, Su Junfeng looked directly at Chen Hao and said confidently, "You're really from Shang Santian. Unfortunately, no matter who you are, you've met me, and your ending is already destined. However, it's also your luck to be able to follow me. Soon, you'll find that this may be the wisest decision in your life." Chapter 1466. What was the upper 3 heavens? In fact, Chen Hao only knew about it from Su Junfeng and Song Longyuan's duel. He didn't awaken any inherited memories, only the lost techniques. Therefore, his knowledge of the immortal world wasn't as much as the average person. But when Su Junfeng and Song Longyuan signed the contract, his powerful perception captured everything that happened between them clearly. Su Junfeng led Song Longyuan to the immortal world's upper 3 heavens, and now, Chen Hao was communicating with Su Junfeng at the same time. It was also because of this that Su Junfeng said so. "Don't talk nonsense, the contract is complete, take out your heavenly dragon mount." Sensing that the power of the contract had already been added to his body, Chen Hao's originally slightly nervous expression suddenly became extremely calm. He looked directly at Su Junfeng and said, "Don't worry, there's no need to provoke me. The heavenly dragon mount is already a part of my strength. When it's time to take it out, I will naturally take it out. I just don't know if you have the qualifications to make me take it out." Come. Boom. Along with Su Junfeng's words, an aura that was as deep as the sea suddenly gushed out from his body. The majestic and condensed essence, energy, and spirit were like solid white jade pillars that rushed to the sky, connecting with the immortal qi that had yet to dissipate. Invincible momentum and terrifying pressure swept towards Chen Hao. Kacha. The terrifying aura seemed to carry the power of lightning. With Su Junfeng's body as the core, tiny lightning arcs appeared in the surrounding tens of thousands of li. Is this Su Junfeng's real aura? So strong? Countless people exclaimed. He's actually so strong? Even Chen Hao's pupils contracted at this moment, and his aura began to soar crazily. What kind of world is the upper 3 heavens? Don't tell me it's at the peak of the heavenly venerable realm? Chen Hao had refined Gu Xian's heavenly venerable godhead, but he didn't have any memories of the upper 3 heavens. To be precise, Gu Xian's memories were of the immortal world, and he didn't know there was upper, middle, and lower 3 heavens. However, Gu Xian encountered the Great War of 3 Realms not long after he just stepped into Empyrean, perishing and reincarnating. Therefore, Chen Hao guessed that one would need to be at least a peak heavenly venerable to be able to touch upon the corresponding heavenly Tao laws and know the division of the celestial world. No matter what, winning this match is the key. Chen Hao's fighting spirit soared crazily. He was certain that this was the strongest opponent he had encountered since the start of the competition. And this was under the circumstance that the other party had not brought out the heavenly dragon mount. Although Chen Hao was full of confidence, he did not dare to be careless. At this moment, Chen Hao threw away all the distracting thoughts. What he had learned in his life flashed in his head like a movie. Eventually, it turned into thousands of basic symbols of power Upanishad that appeared in Chen Hao's head. It was also at this moment that a ball of light condensed from 7-colored celestial light appeared on Chen Hao's body, causing his already handsome appearance to be tainted with boundless celestial qi. It was as if an immortal had been banished to the world, causing the world to begin to tremble as boundless Tao laws surged. This is? That dense aura, the resonance of Tao laws, and the shaking of heaven and earth caused all the cultivators to look at Chen Hao in surprise. Comprehending Tao? Su Junfeng frowned, and a trace of anger flashed in his eyes. He said, "Humph, you actually dare to comprehend Tao while fighting with me, Su Junfeng? Truly, the ignorant are fearless." Moreover, I remember that you should have used the power of the Godhead, right? Ordinary people might not be able to see anything from this aura, but Su Junfeng could tell at a glance what Chen Hao wanted to do. Comprehending Dao. Comprehending one's own Dao, the strongest Dao. But when was this? If it were any other spirit of all things encountering such a powerful opponent like Su Junfeng, they would definitely activate the power of the Godhead at the first moment and use the strongest Dao of their previous life, not comprehending Dao. After all, comprehending Dao required a long time and experience a lot of tempering before it was possible to obtain a little bit of improvement. It was only a possibility. This was also the reason why almost none of the spirits of all things that had appeared so far had been able to walk out a new Dao. But Chen Hao actually released the aura of comprehending Dao at this time, wanting to comprehend Dao in the battle with Su Junfeng. More importantly, in everyone's eyes, Chen Hao was someone who had already used the power of the Godhead. Once he used it, it meant that he had stepped onto the previous Dao, so how could he possibly comprehend a new Dao? Can you cut the crap? Come, let me see your true strength and see if you are qualified to be my servant. Chen Hao said proudly. As he spoke, he casually struck out with a palm. In an instant, brilliant light gushed out from Chen Hao's palm. That was endless, the simplest runes, but the moment they stepped out of Chen Hao's palm, they quickly combined into one profound and complicated rune after another at a speed that no one could capture, a total of 10,000 runes. Just as everyone thought that Chen Hao's attack had condensed into a single palm strike, everyone was shocked to see that the 10,000 runes that were shooting towards Su Junfeng at a terrifying speed suddenly began to superimpose on top of each other. 100 Daos combined into one, and the 10,000 Daos became 100 Daos. What a freakish control! Is this the Dao he comprehended, or is it an absolute art that he cultivated before? He should have cultivated it before. If he cultivated it before, then the aura on his body is clearly in the state of comprehending Dao. The first time he released it, it was the simplest runes without any combination. Some of the spirits of all living things and some of the experts who had comprehended their own Dao were shocked and confused at this time. This was really hard for them to understand. And at this time, just when the 100 runes were about to reach Su Junfeng, they actually condensed again. Boom. At this moment, heaven and earth suddenly shook, and the entire Deerchaser Peak trembled violently. Very strong comprehension, but unfortunately, in front of me, it's just an insignificant skill. Along with Su Junfeng's voice, his aura soared, but he didn't move at all, and he blasted a punch at Chen Hao's attack. Bang. Boom. 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 In an instant, a terrifying explosion occurred, and the two realms of yin and yang seemed to overlap. The mountains collapsed and the earth cracked, and gravel flew everywhere. Even the seal's enchantment shook violently, and cracks appeared. One move, just one move, and it shocked everyone. What did it mean for the enchantment to crack? That was an enchantment condensed by 100 true immortal kings, and the two of them were just small fries in the Daoist golden wonderland. But, is this the power of drawing on immortal chi? The power is so terrifying, if they advance to the true immortal king realm. No, it's the Grand Mist Supremacy realm. I'm afraid they'll have the ability to kill ordinary true immortal kings. Countless top experts were shocked, and they didn't dare to imagine how terrifying the two of them would be after advancing to the next realm. This is really enviable. What's the use of being envious? It's best not to compare with them. They're not something we can compare with at all. They're the reincarnations of the Almighty from the immortal world. Chapter 1467. That's right. No matter what, they were once all-powerful figures in the celestial world. Compared to them, we can only find a piece of tofu and kill ourselves. That's true. Su Junfeng is so strong. At this time, the raging energy and immortal light dispersed a little. Everyone was shocked to find that Su Junfeng stood proudly on the spot and did not retreat in the slightest. Meanwhile, Chen Hao, who had attacked first, took half a step back, leaving a footprint on the incomparably hard stage inscribed with complicated runes. That's all you've got? But for you, it's not bad. To be able to combine such a powerful technique in such a short time, even the strongest celestial emperors can't do that. Unfortunately, for me it's just trash. Continue, let me see if my future servant is worthy of an important position. Su Junfeng said proudly. With a calm expression, Chen Hao, who was surrounded by a colorful halo and a dense fog, ignored Su Junfeng and directly waved his palm again. But this time, it was not one palm, but 5 palm strikes in a row. Every palm strike had tens of thousands of the simplest and most basic runes surging out. 5 palm strikes meant 50,000 runes. What? At this time, not to mention the others, even Su Junfeng showed a look of surprise. However, he still stood with his hands behind his back, motionless. Although he was surprised by such talent and comprehension, and the control of so many basic runes, it did not really enter his eyes. To be precise, as long as Chen Hao was in the state of enlightenment, in his opinion, he could not be shaken, unless Chen Hao used the strongest technique of the Godhead Tao. Condense, condense, and condense again. After 3 condenses, the 50,000 most basic runes formed an attack that was 10 times stronger than the first attack. As for Su Junfeng, he still punched out at the last moment. In the end, Chen Hao took another step back, while Su Junfeng's figure only swayed a little. He looked at Chen Hao with interest, but there was also a hint of mockery in his eyes as he said, "Very good. Even though you haven't displayed the Godhead Grand Tao from before, I can be sure that you're already a little stronger than my heavenly dragon mount. I hope you have the ability to continue." "As you wish." This time, Chen Hao struck out with both palms, and in an instant he struck out 10 palms. Similarly, each of the palms contained 10,000 of the most basic and simplest runes. 10 palms were equivalent to 100,000 runes. Double? 100,000? This time, Su Junfeng's pupils shrank. He was truly shocked. 50,000 of the simplest runes were still within his ability. He could even make 60,000, 70,000, or 80,000. However, 80,000 was his limit. It was the limit of the most basic and simplest runes that he knew, and also the limit of the number that he could control. But at this moment, Chen Hao actually raised it to 100,000. In his opinion, this was simply inconceivable. After all, he was an existence that everyone in the upper 3 heavens looked up to. If he couldn't do it, how could Chen Hao do it? Impossible. How could he have learned so many basic runes? How is it possible to control 100,000 Daoists at the same time? In the intense shock, Su Junfeng could no longer remain calm. Boom! His battle intent, which had already reached its peak, exploded at this moment. At the same time, he took a step forward. He moved with the wind and immortal qi, and directly attacked Chen Hao at an unimaginable speed. Even if doing so would lose the awesome image that he had created before, Su Junfeng didn't care at all. It was just like how he didn't deny that he would use the heavenly dragon mount at the beginning. In a battle, when you could act tough, you would act tough. When you couldn't act tough, you would explode without hesitation. Winning the battle was the ultimate goal. In the face of victory, everything was fleeting. This was also one of the terrifying aspects of Su Junfeng. What? However, when he wanted to use a fast attack to disrupt Chen Hao's comprehension of the ultimate technique, Su Junfeng was shocked to find that he couldn't pass through the 100,000 runes that were completely independent and hadn't condensed into any magical power. Those runes, as he approached, quickly retreated along with Chen Hao's retreat, making him, who was astonishingly fast, unable to get close at all. To be precise, the distance between him and Chen Hao was astonishingly consistent. No matter how he accelerated, there was no change in the slightest. This feeling was as if Chen Hao was his shadow, and the 100,000 runes were Chen Hao's shadow. Like a shadow, they flew around the huge arena. And in the process of flying, the 100,000 runes condensed at a relatively constant speed. What kind of concept was this? Chen Hao's expression didn't change at all, as if what he was doing at this moment was nothing special. However, Su Junfeng and all the cultivators who were watching the battle widened their eyes in shock. How amazing of a control ability was needed to do this? How powerful of a speed was needed to coordinate with it? How powerful of a state of mind and willpower was needed to ignore Su Junfeng's attack? Any weak point wouldn't be able to do what Chen Hao did. No wonder Li Yuan dared to comprehend Dao and create an absolute art during the battle. Until this time, everyone finally understood where Chen Hao's power lay. All right, I admit, this time I really misjudged. However, no matter how great your talent is, don't think about beating me. Come out. A heavenly dragon's roar that reverberated throughout heaven and earth suddenly erupted. A golden light flashed, and the heavenly dragon mount stepped out from between Su Junfeng's brows. It was its original form, but its size was only 1,000 feet. Su Junfeng directly stepped onto the dragon's neck, man and dragon becoming one. When beasts recognized a master, that was a battle pet. The aura of the battle pet and master were completely one. Under this kind of unity situation, it was absolutely not as simple as 1 + 1 = 2. Kill! Su Junfeng ordered. Roar! Swish! 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 The heavenly dragon mount's power and aura immediately fused into Su Junfeng frantically. At the same time, its bloody maw spewed out one powerful dragon breath after another. This was the heavenly dragon race's innate ability. It didn't dare to say that it could ignore all laws, but it could ignore many laws. And at this moment, with the heavenly dragon mount's energy and speed bonus, Su Junfeng's speed and condensed ability instantly soared to a terrifying level. However, it's useless. Chen Hao's indifferent and calm voice came out from the high-speed moving storm. What was shocking was that Chen Hao and Chen Hao's 100,000 runes still maintained the same distance from Su Junfeng. It was truly like a shadow following the body, a maggot in the bone. And at this time, everyone discovered that Li Yuan's aura didn't seem to have the slightest change, so how could his speed soar? Could it be that his speed came because of Su Junfeng? Is it a kind of ability? Someone guessed. What kind of ability is this? And at this time, the shocked Su Junfeng also asked the doubts in everyone's heart. Chapter 1468. Now you know it's a divine ability? It's not a divine ability. It's just an application of the true meaning of profound meaning. You won't understand even if I tell you. Chen Hao said in a disdainful tone, don't waste your energy. Obediently gather your strength and face my new ultimate technique head-on. You're lucky to be my tester because you'll be the first person to witness the most powerful great Dao. Arrogant. The strongest great Dao? You want the strongest great Dao? You're dreaming. Even the strongest person in Shang Santian wouldn't dare to boast like that. Come on, I'll give you a chance to test it. Can you not give it to me? Chen Hao said disdainfully. At this moment, Chen Hao was using a secret technique that he had comprehended based on the Yin God and Yang God's profound meaning under the space-time law of the Godhead. He didn't need to spend much energy at all. He only needed to lock onto his opponent and he could move automatically with his opponent's movements. No matter what, he couldn't get close. Don't talk nonsense, come on. I want you to know that my absolute power is not something you can compete with. Su Junfeng was choked by Chen Hao's words. That was the truth. If Chen Hao didn't want to fight with him, he really couldn't do anything. This divine ability was too abnormal. Buzz. It took a long time to describe, but in fact, it happened in an instant. The first fusion of 100,000 runes was completed. It was still 100 runes combined into 1,000 runes. Then the second fusion began. It was also 100 runes combined into 10 runes. At this moment, the aura of each of the 10 runes had reached an extremely terrifying level. Su Junfeng was still fine, but the heavenly dragon mount under his feet, which was Tsang Long Yuan, was currently flashing with intense shock in its huge dragon eyes. He had never expected Hua Li Yuan to be so powerful. Of course, although he lost at the beginning, he thought that he lost to the chaotic heavenly beast diagram. Now, he was very clear that he couldn't complain about losing to Su Junfeng. It should be his honor to be able to recognize Su Junfeng as his master. However, he didn't expect Li Yuan to have the strength to compete with Su Junfeng. Moreover, Su Junfeng was completely in a passive situation when he didn't reveal his strongest strength. Li Yuan is so strong. This was what countless people were thinking at this moment. The resonance of 10,000 Daos had always been used to describe the strength of the supreme Daos. However, when had anyone ever seen 10,000 Daos appear at the same time? That was just an adjective. But today, they saw it in Dehua Li Yuan, a cultivator of the Daoyuo Golden Wonderland. Not 10,000 but 100,000. Finally, the 10 runes fused into one, and the divine ability was formed. It transformed into a sword light that tore apart heaven and earth and pierced through the sky. It carried an invincible momentum, boundless power, and boundless pressure as it charged toward Su Junfeng, who was madly circulating his energy and ultimate technique. At this moment, everyone's attention was captured by the sword of light that Qinhao condensed from 100,000 talisman markings. At this moment, the heavens and the earth seemed to have stopped, time and space seemed to have frozen, all sound had vanished, all scenes had vanished, and only this sword of light remained. Chi-chi-chi-crack. Rumble. At this moment, something even more shocking happened. In the void, the immortal chi that had been channeled by the two of them to battle suddenly tore the space apart restlessly. In an instant, it condensed into a tribulation cloud that blasted towards Qinhao. Heavenly punishment. Heaven-defying punishment. Moreover, it seemed to be a heavenly punishment that came directly from the immortal world. This was because none of the cultivators present could sense the fluctuations of heaven and earth. Moreover, this lightning contained boundless and terrifying immortal chi, which was many times stronger and purer than the immortal chi that had been channeled by the two of them previously. The only explanation was that this lightning came from the immortal world. What did a heaven-defying punishment from the immortal world mean? It meant that Qinhao's sword of 100,000 talisman markings had already reached the heaven-defying condition even in the immortal world. This sudden change caused countless people to exclaim in surprise. Ha ha! Su Junfeng, however, let out an excited laugh. Rumble. It was also at this moment that Qinhao's sword attack collided with Su Junfeng's attack that was condensed from the power of Tsang Longyuan, but it was annihilated by the endless lightning and immortal light. At this moment, Su Junfeng stepped on the heavenly dragon and retreated at the fastest speed, out of the range of the lightning. You actually triggered a heaven-defying punishment from the upper three heavens of the immortal world. Since ancient times, no one has been able to withstand it. You will die without a doubt. Haha. Su Junfeng's excited voice resounded through heaven and earth. Su Junfeng was very clear that heaven-defying punishments were also divided into different levels. In the great wide world, there was no qualification to descend heavenly punishment on people like them because their state of mind, will, comprehension of the laws of heaven, and divine abilities had already surpassed any other world, including the great world of Xiandi, the lower three heavens, and the middle three heavens of the immortal world. However, it had to be said that the heaven-defying punishments of the great wide world, the lower three heavens, and the middle three heavens were not fatal. To be precise, they should be beneficial to cultivators. Of course, one had to grasp a slim chance of survival. This was the proof of having the qualifications to step into a higher plane. The heaven-defying punishment was the plane that erupted. However, the upper three heavens of the immortal world was different. That could be said to be the home of all cultivators. The upper three heavens was the highest plane for cultivators. What did it mean to defy the heavens of the upper three heavens of the immortal world? It meant that this was a genius that had not been seen in the upper three heavens of the immortal world for hundreds of millions of years. It meant that he had the possibility of reaching a plane that was even stronger than the upper three heavens of the immortal world. But at the same time, it also meant death. Yes, in the records of the upper three heavens of the immortal world, there was no lack of people with heaven-defying divine abilities in the endless river of time. Unfortunately, once they triggered a heaven-defying punishment, there was only one result for them: death. The heavens would not tolerate it. There were no exceptions. At least, there were no exceptions in the records. So what if it's a heaven-defying punishment from the upper three heavens? It was also at this moment that Chen Hao raised his head and looked at the indescribably terrifying lightning that was completely condensed from immortal qi. His figure that stood proudly was still straight. His handsome face and pitch-black eyes that were like the stars in the night sky were still as calm as before. Although all of this was unexpected, at this moment he was not afraid. He said these words softly. His voice was soft and cold, but it cut through the sky, penetrated the lightning, covered Su Junfeng's laughter, and clearly entered everyone's ears. Arrogance. Arrogance. This was the true arrogance that came from the bones, the true arrogance that looked down on the world. At this moment, unparalleled essence, energy, and spirit burst out from Chen Hao's body. His third eye opened, his black hair flew, and his Taoist robe fluttered. But what was more shocking was that Chen Hao did not use any protective divine ability at this moment. There was not a single rune flickering all over his body. This was clearly the rhythm of resisting the heaven-defying punishment. Chapter 1469. The heavenly punishment, whether it was the great heavenly punishment caused by the advancement of a big realm, the heavenly punishment caused by a small realm in the Daoist Golden Wonderland, or the heaven-defying punishment, were all targeted at the person who triggered the heavenly punishment. No matter where the person who triggered the heavenly punishment was, the heavenly punishment would appear above him. Moreover, the range of the heavenly punishment was based on the law of space and time around the person who triggered it. This meant that in the arena, under the powerful law of space, the aura of the heaven-defying punishment could only be sensed by a limited number of people. After all, the arena was a fighting space with a radius of tens of billions of miles. However, such a limited effect was enough to make people feel horrified. They couldn't imagine how strong the heaven-defying punishment was. The heaven-defying punishment was mainly targeted at Chen Hao. How strong was the heaven-defying punishment? However, Chen Hao chose to take it head-on. In the eyes of everyone, Chen Hao was simply crazy. In particular, Su Junfeng's words had clearly told everyone that this was the heaven-defying punishment of the upper three heavens in the immortal realm. Since ancient times, no one who triggered it could survive. The indescribably terrifying lightning finally descended. Boundless immortal qi and boundless Dao laws condensed into lightning, instantly annihilating Chen Hao's soaring spirit, qi, and spirit, and striking him squarely. Creak bang, bang, bang. In an instant, countless blue electric arcs and flames appeared on Chen Hao's body. His incomparably powerful body turned pitch black. Cracks and small-scale explosions appeared on his body. The blood and flesh spurting out of his body turned into powder in a flash under the terrifying thunder. Terrifying. Only the word, terrifying, could describe what everyone was feeling at this moment. All the people who knew Chen Hao were sweating for Chen Hao at this moment. In particular, the women were so nervous that their bodies trembled and they clenched their fists tightly. However, it had to be said that after accompanying Chen Hao through countless life-or-death crises that seemed impossible to return to, the women and Chen Hao's brothers and sisters had become more tenacious. Otherwise, they would have been scared to death at this time. That's all you've got? The moment the first thunderbolt disappeared, Chen Hao, who no longer looked like a human, was still standing proudly. He looked down on the world and coldly spat out 4 words. Crack, crack, crack. Stage after stage came crashing down one after another. Su Junfeng was forced to retreat further and further. Fortunately, the space laws of the stage were extremely powerful. Retreating 100 billion miles wasn't a problem. But even so, that increasingly terrifying pressure made him feel like his heart was about to break. But Chen Hao actually held on time and time again, forcefully withstanding it. Impossible, impossible. How could he resist the heaven-defying punishment of the upper 3 heavens? Furthermore, he was resisting it head-on? Absolutely impossible. Impossible. Su Junfeng couldn't believe his eyes, but that was the truth. Whether he believed it or not, it was all laid bare in front of him. He had no choice but to believe it. No one knew how much pain Chen Hao was enduring at this moment. At the same time, no one knew how excited Chen Hao was at this moment. When the heaven-defying punishment descended and he sensed the terrifying aura, he was indeed shocked. He also felt the threat of death at the first moment. But it was only a split second before his state of mind changed. A new divine ability awakened spontaneously in his mind. A peerless divine ability that used heaven-defying punishment as a means to temper his body. Chen Hao had just integrated with two godheads, one heavenly venerable godhead, and several of his fates. Even if he had truly integrated with the godheads, it was impossible for him to integrate all of them into one, without any conflict between them. But the appearance of this heaven-defying punishment made all of this possible. Tempered 1,000 times. There was no tempering effect that could surpass heaven-defying punishment. Moreover, it was the heaven-defying punishment from the upper three heavens. Pain. Incomparable pain. But Chen Hao could clearly feel the flaws in his soul and the impurities in his body that he could no longer sense were being expelled under the heaven-defying punishment's tempering. Unfortunately, the heaven-defying punishment's duration was too short. It couldn't completely temper Chen Hao. Even the heaven-defying punishment can't destroy you. It seems like after the Great War of the Three Realms, the current heaven-defying punishment is no longer the same as before. Then I, Su Junfeng, will punish you on behalf of the heavens. The instant the heaven-defying punishment disappeared, the shocked Su Junfeng merged with his Sky Dragon battle pet and attacked Chen Hao. Songlong Yuan's Sky Dragon godhead, Su Junfeng's own godhead, a godhead that was many times stronger than Gu Xian's heavenly venerable Gu Xian's godhead, fully bloomed at this moment. A terrifying pressure swept out, dimming the heavens and earth. Despicable! Shameless bastard! At this moment, countless people cursed loudly. The heaven-defying punishment was different from the heaven-defying punishment when one's cultivation level was increased. When one passed the heaven-defying punishment, there would be no return of energy. This meant that Chen Hao, who had just passed the heaven-defying punishment, was at his weakest. Just by looking at his dark and swarthy appearance that no longer resembled a human, it was enough to show that at this moment, Chen Hao was probably only supported by his arrogance that looked down on the world. But Su Junfeng chose to attack at this moment. This was indeed extremely shameless. But he didn't violate the rules of the competition. What could the crowd do? But just as Su Junfeng's attack was about to hit Chen Hao, the deformed Chen Hao's body shook. The resplendent rainbow light appeared again. At the same time, he suddenly opened his eyes. Even the heavens can't destroy me. Are you worthy? Scram. Boom. The dark and swarthy Chen Hao punched out. Everyone could clearly see that Chen Hao's arms and fists had almost no flesh left. But as his power bloomed, the dark flesh disappeared. Everyone could see the sparkling and translucent jade-like bones that were emitting endless divine light and seemed to contain thunder and lightning. Bang! There was no divine ability, just a simple punch, but it easily broke through Su Junfeng's sure kill attack and landed squarely on Su Junfeng's chest. Ah! Rumble! Su Junfeng was extremely frightened. His screams and the sound of a terrifying explosion were heard at the same time. Even though he had transformed into the heavenly dragon battle pet's armor, his chest was still pierced through by Chen Hao's simple and violent punch. On the other hand, Chen Hao gently withdrew the skeleton hand, and his entire body suddenly shook violently like a cat shaking off the water on its body. It was also at this moment that incomparably resplendent immortal light bloomed from his body, and at the same time, an unbelievably majestic and pure life force spread out from between his eyebrows. In the next moment, the extraordinarily handsome Chen Hao appeared in front of everyone again. Swish! Without giving too much time to imagine, Chen Hao directly tore the void and disappeared on the spot. The next moment, bang! A giant foot that seemed to be able to crush the heavens and the earth appeared out of thin air in front of Su Junfeng, who was flying backward but couldn't stop himself even if he wanted to, and directly stepped on him to the ground. Chapter 1470. Everyone looked at this incredible scene in shock. They could not believe what they were seeing. One kick. The insufferably arrogant and unfathomable Su Junfeng, who had fused with the equally powerful heavenly dragon mount and fully activated the terrifying power of his godhead, was actually trampled under Li Yuan's foot. Like a dead dog, Su Junfeng couldn't even move. This kick was also extremely simple. It did not contain any law of magic, but it ignored all laws of Tao and went straight to the origin of the great Tao. All the cultivators on Zhulu Peak fell into a dead silence. They stared blankly at the handsome and cold Chen Hao, too shocked to speak. There was no most heaven-defying, only more heaven-defying. How heaven-defying was Li Yuan? It was unimaginable. Even the masters on the rostrum, such as the Star River King, were dumbfounded. How was this a battle in the Daoist Golden Wonderland? Even the absolute power, which was the most restricted by one's realm, was not something that the masters of the Daoist Golden Wonderland could possess. Even the top geniuses of the Grandma's Supremacy realm, including the top 10 this time, were not as good as Li Yuan, let alone his state of mind, will, unique techniques, and comprehension of the heavenly Tao. This was not something that could be measured by the inherent thinking of the great world of Xiandi. Puff! Chen Hao's expression was calm and cold. His foot, which was blooming with 7-colored immortal light, stepped on Su Juanfeng's chest, which was almost completely penetrated by the previous punch and pressed down bit by bit. Su Juanfeng's mouth was full of blood. "Don't kill me. I admit defeat. We have a contract. If I lose, I'll be your man." No matter how he resisted, there was no effect. Su Junfeng knew that if he did not speak, he might face death. "Is that so? Then why did you want to punish me on behalf of the heavens?" "No, I just felt your strength, so I seized the best opportunity to defeat you. Do you believe your own words?" Chen Hao said disdainfully, "A person like you is not worthy to be my servant." "No, puff." After Chen Hao finished speaking, he did not give Su Junfeng a chance to speak again. He pointed a finger, and a sword-like immortal light pierced through Su Junfeng's forehead. There was not much energy fluctuation, but Su Junfeng, who had surpassed the reincarnation of an Empyrean, widened his eyes and lost focus. The vitality of his body was annihilated in an instant. Su Junfeng did. Then, Su Junfeng's corpse, as well as the floating godhead that Chen Hao controlled, directly fused into Chen Hao's forehead. This also meant that the heavenly beast chaos diagram and everything that belonged to Su Junfeng would be taken over by Chen Hao. At this moment, Song Longyuan, who had merged with Su Junfeng, separated from Su Junfeng's body and returned to his human form. His face was terrifyingly pale, and his eyes were filled with fear as he looked at Chen Hao. "You are my spoils of war, right?" Chen Hao stared at Song Longyuan and said calmly. However, in Song Longyuan's eyes at this moment, Chen Hao was like a high and mighty demon that controlled all living things. He hurriedly replied, "Yes. Yes, that's good. Open your soul." After hearing Chen Hao's words, Song Longyuan knew that the terrifying Li Yuan had no intention of killing him. This made him feel a lot more relieved. Why would he hesitate? He directly opened his soul residence and sincerely opened it for Chen Hao. Chen Hao directly fused his imprint into Song Longyuan's soul. Like signing a master-servant contract with a beast, he turned Song Longyuan into his battle pet. Then, Song Longyuan fused into Chen Hao's forehead. In the arena, it became Chen Hao who stood proudly alone. "Li Yuan! Li Yuan! Li Yuan!" At this moment, Li Yuan's name began to resound throughout the entire Deer Chaser Peak. Chen Hao smiled slightly. When the host announced his victory, he returned to the team from the University of Dohua. Everyone looked at Chen Hao with fanatical eyes. Li Yuan was also crowned with the title of the Almighty from Shang Santian in the Immortal realm. As for what it was, no one knew. After all, Su Junfeng was the one who knew the most about Shang Santian. Now, Su Junfeng was dead. However, this was no longer important. Everyone was sure that Li Yuan of the University of Dohua would have a bright future. "Brotherly, congratulations on winning the first place. You are a great person who doesn't hold a grudge against me. I was blind before. I hope that you will let bygones be bygones and let me follow you. I will not hesitate to be at your beck and call." To everyone's surprise, Zhang Yuanzhao took the initiative to stand in front of Chen Hao and bowed. Moreover, he bowed and did not get up, waiting for Chen Hao's reply. Although Zhang Yuanzhao was thousands of miles away from Chen Hao, he was still one of the top 10. Moreover, he was also the reincarnation of the immortal emperor. However, he took the initiative to kneel and pledge his loyalty to Chen Hao. This made everyone a little dumbfounded. In everyone's opinion, Zhan Yuanzhao would definitely be the target of all the major forces. Li Yuan would not reject such a subordinate. You are not worthy. However, to everyone's surprise, Chen Hao said directly, "Get lost." Thank you. Zhan Yuanzhao lowered his head even more. He did not beg anymore. After a deep bow, he took a few steps back and flew away as if he had been pardoned. His back was already wet with cold sweat. No one knew the fear in his heart. To be able to kill Su Junfeng, to be able to make Cang Longyuan obedient, and to be able to trigger the heaven-defying punishment, he was not someone he could offend. He was destined to be an existence he could only look up to. If he did not apologize and admit his mistake at this time, in the future, with just a thought from the other party, he might turn into ashes. Now, although Chen Hao did not accept him, he asked him to get lost. This also meant that he would not pursue his previous insults. At this moment, to everyone's shock, the Celestial River King went directly to Chen Hao with a gratified smile and said, "Disciple, not bad. I didn't expect you to have such a powerful inheritance. Even Master can't help but feel jealous. Celestial River King, your disciple is dead. Although he was my life, it was a life I did not want. At this moment, he has been completely refined by me, and even his memories no longer exist." Chen Hao smiled and said calmly, "Once upon a time, not to mention facing the powerful Celestial River King, Chen Hao felt like he was treading on thin ice. There was no other way. He was too weak, and the Celestial River King was too strong. Once there was a slight mistake, it would mean destruction. It was not something he could compete with at all. But now, Chen Hao looked directly at the Celestial River King in front of him, without the slightest fear, and said what he wanted to say. Disciple? Chen Hao wanted to vomit. Under the premise that he had enough strength to protect himself, how could he resist the urge to vomit and pretend to be polite to the Celestial River King? The Celestial River King's face suddenly sank. Chapter 1471. Under the watchful eyes of the public, he was the #1 person in the great world of Xiandi. Who dared to talk to him like this? However, the Star River King did not fly into a rage directly. Instead, he stared at Chen Hao and said, "Do you think so?" "That's the truth." Chen Hao still said calmly. It was at this time that Sword King Chen Hao, King Ying, and King Luoying came to Chen Hao's side, looking dignified. Although they knew that the Star River King would make a move, they did not expect the Star River King to be so impatient. The top 10 competition of the Grand Mist Supremacy realm had not yet begun. "Well, you are indeed the reincarnation of a mighty figure in the immortal world. After awakening the inheritance, you don't recognize me as your master. Don't forget, even your original body has cultivated my 9 lives mysterious technique. Since you have abandoned your master and refused to recognize me as your master, then I don't care what kind of reincarnation you are, I will take back my magical power." The Star River King said coldly. Chen Hao was slightly stunned. He did not expect the Star River King to be so direct and so impatient. This was unexpected. In Chen Hao's view, the #1 person in the great world of Xiandi should more or less care about his image in front of the public. Even if he wanted to eat, he should not eat in such an unsightly manner. But he just had to eat in such an unsightly manner. "You are not my master, so how can you talk about abandoning your master? Betraying the Tao is even more outrageous. If you want to condemn someone, you can always find a pretext. As for the 9 lives mysterious technique, what does it have to do with you? I just killed a person with the 9 lives mysterious technique and comprehended a life technique that is completely different from yours. What right do you have to take it back? Don't think that you can do anything to me just because you are the #1 person in the great world of Xiandi. If I want to leave, no one in this world can stop me." Since it had come to this point, Chen Hao did not need to retreat. He looked at the Star River King arrogantly and said, as he spoke, the aura around his body became unusually erratic, as if he could break through the air at any time. Xianxia, how can you do this? At this moment, Prince Ying stood in front of Chen Hao and questioned. Celestial River King, I'm afraid this is not appropriate, right? Chen Tianhe was only one of Li Yuan's lives, and it was a life that was filled with evil thoughts. It was understandable that Li Yuan had destroyed everything that belonged to him and only recognized his true self. We've discussed this before. Sword King Chen Taishu took a step forward and said, although the aura on his body did not change at all, his eyes became several times brighter. It was obvious that he was not as calm as he looked. Hundreds of millions of years have passed. Xianxia, not only have you not changed, you've even improved. You just want the heavenly beast chaos diagram and the godheads of Li Yuan and the others. Why do you have to be so hypocritical? Abandoned teacher? What kind of teacher are you? Betraying the Tao was even more ridiculous. If you want to touch him, Luo Ying, will be the first to stop you. Luo Ying King was even more direct. Those words hit the nail on the head, causing Celestial River King's face to turn green. Good. I, Xianxia, have treated the two of you well. Everyone knows my feelings for you, especially Ying. In the end, you fell out with me because of Li Yuan? Chen Taishu, and you, how have I treated you? It seems that I, Xianxia, have been silent for too long. Do you really think you can stop me? Boom. Celestial River King's aura suddenly soared, and a terrifying pressure swept through the world. Unlike the pressure that Gu Xian, Wei Wufa, and the other spirits of all living things used to activate their godheads, Celestial River King's pressure was substantial, and it was the double pressure of absolute power and realm. At this moment, even Chen Hao, who was enduring the heaven-defying punishment, had his bones creaking because of the oppressive pressure. As for the surrounding cultivators from the University of Dahua, they couldn't withstand this substantial pressure and fell to the ground with a plop. At this moment, countless people screamed and looked at the sudden change in shock. No one thought that Celestial River King would suddenly flip out, and no one thought that King Ying, the new generation of Sword King, and Luo Ying King would stand against Celestial River King at the same time because of Dahua Academy's Li Yuan. Seal. Celestial River King waved his hand, and the entire Deerchaser Peak suddenly bloomed with endless immortal light. Terrifying runes condensed in the void and directly sealed the entire Deerchaser Peak. The moment before Celestial River King stepped on Chen Hao, the cultivators responsible for broadcasting the competition in the immortal world had stopped under Celestial River King's order. Sure enough, it was premeditated. Xianxia, you're really despicable. Despicable? Ying, anyone in the world can say that I, Xianxia, am despicable, but you are not qualified. How did I, Xianxia, treat you? Even if you betrayed me and made me a cuckold, how did I treat you? What qualifications do you have to say that I'm despicable? I've never given up on you for hundreds of millions of years, and I've been waiting for you to change your mind. I believe that one day you will understand my heart, but now, you've fallen out with me again because of a person you just met not long ago. Luo Ying, I've wronged you, but is it wrong for a man like me to have a few more women? Don't talk nonsense. King Ying was so angry that his lips trembled. It was fine if he did not mention the past, but when he did, King Ying could not control his emotions. So you're right? How did you get me? Shameless man. What does Ying have to do with you? She made you a cuckold? What an unreasonable lunatic. Are you living in your own world? King Luoying said angrily. Enough. Ying Luoying, remember, you forced me to do this. Chen Hao, leave now. King Ying sensed the terrifying aura of Celestial River King and said sternly. Chen Hao withstood the terrifying pressure of Celestial River King, and the colorful immortal light between his eyebrows directly enveloped Chen Shui and the other girls, as well as Chen Nan, who was going to participate in the Grand Mist Supremacy Realm's top 10 ranking competition, and many brothers and sisters, including Rulin and Ruoxian. Of course, Chen Hao did not want to leave at this time. If he wanted to, he could leave at any time. He was just afraid that his own people would be hurt, so he kept them in his mind space first. However, to Chen Hao's surprise, Ruoxian pulled Rulin and shook her head at Chen Hao, refusing to step into Chen Hao's mind space. Rulin was puzzled. However, Ruoxian pulled Rulin, and the aura around her changed dramatically. The aura of the highest realm of the 9 Lives mysterious technique, the Great Change technique, and the Bloodline Origin aura. At this moment, Rulin looked at Ruoxian in shock. Her eyes widened, and her delicate body began to tremble. All this time, she only thought that Ruoxian was her best sister and would never be separated. She even had to choose a sister for her Dao companion. But now, she sensed an aura that scared her. It was an aura that was completely connected to Ruoxian's aura, and the same origin aura. Chapter 1472. Similarly, when the Star River King looked at Ruoxian and Ruolan in shock, everyone looked at them, wondering why the Star River King was so shocked. Don't be afraid. We will always be sisters. Ruoxian held Ruolan's hand tightly and said softly. After that, she looked at the Star River King. Her eyes became extremely cold, and her voice was even colder. If you want to kill them, kill us too. The Celestial River King sensed the familiar aura, and the terrifying energy fluctuations around him weakened. His voice trembled as he spoke. You're my little sister, you're finally back? Is this true? My mother is dead. What? Your mother? Bang! When the Star River King heard Ruoxian's words, he suddenly looked as if he had suffered a huge blow. He, a half-step immortal emperor, fell from the void and sat on the ground in a daze. He looked at Ruoxian and Ruolan with a complicated expression. No, this is impossible. This is impossible. The Star River King seemed to be unable to bear the sudden news. He held his head, tore the void, and left in a flash. No one knew what was going on. Even Prince Ying, Chen Hao, and the others did not know why the Star River King was so shocked by Ruoxian's words. Ruoxian, who watched the Star River King disappear, burst into tears at this moment, her delicate body trembling. Ruoxian pulled Ruolan, who was also crying but did not know why she was crying. Ruolan was crying because of Ruoxian. She walked in front of Chen Hao and said softly, "Let us in, okay?" Chen Hao did not ask why. He could feel that even if he asked, Ruoxian would not tell him. Perhaps it was the pain in her heart that she did not want to mention to anyone. Everyone was not surprised that Chen Hao of the Daoist Golden Wonderland took living people into his mind space. The reincarnation of a powerful figure in the immortal world was not something they could predict. Anything was possible. With the departure of the Star River King, the tense atmosphere disappeared. The top figures on the rostrum naturally became the focus of everyone. The competition that was held once in 1,000 years could not end prematurely. It had to go on. Therefore, after a simple discussion, the host announced the official start of the Grand Mist Supremacy Realm's top 10 ranking competition. Leaving the Celestial River King would not affect the competition in any way. After all, this competition had already been held countless times, and the process had already been set. All they needed was a host to host the show. However, the Daoist Golden Wonderland's heaven-defying display, the Star River King's outburst, and his departure made everyone completely lose their passion. Even the top 10 of the Grand Mist Supremacy Realm lost their fighting spirit. They only wanted to end this quickly and leave as soon as possible. Because everyone felt that from today onwards, the great world of Xiandi would lose its former peace. Perhaps all the rules and order would be overturned. A great era had descended, and a chaotic era was about to arrive. Because the first person was the Celestial River King, and also because of the reincarnations of many almighty experts from the immortal world. More importantly, the Celestial World Gate had already loosened. This day might be the beginning of a new era, and the arrival of a new era. The Grand Mist Supremacy Realm's top 10 ranking competition ended in a dull manner. Although Qin Nan had achieved a good result of 3rd place, it did not attract much attention. Subsequently, after combining the results of the team competition and the individual competition, the arbitration group announced the new academy's grade and ranking. The Dehua Academy was directly promoted from a first-class academy to a top academy, and it was ranked 24th. It could be said that it had soared to the sky. What was even more amazing was that King Ying, King of Swords Qin Taishu, and King Luoying, who was already in the Dahua Academy, were announced at the same time as the honorary dean of the Dahua Academy. The competition that affected the entire cultivation world was finally over. When the academy teams and cultivators on Zhulu Peak left Zhulu Peak one after another, Kong Ying, Tang Haoyan, Zhan Yuanzhao, who had left on his own before, and the other spirits of all creation who had been exposed became the targets of top experts. Moreover, there was more than one person following them. The doubts of the Godhead were undoubtedly huge. In a world where the strong preyed on the weak, an ordinary man's wealth would arouse the envy of others. In order to improve their cultivation, many cultivators dared to do anything. Among these stalkers, there was no doubt that the Galaxy King's Xiao family had the most experts. However, this had nothing to do with Chen Hao. He returned to Dahua Academy with Cheng Wanxiang and the other cultivators of the Dahua Academy. No one dared to follow him because he had King Ying, King Sword, and King Luoying by his side. With such a lineup, only the Galaxy King would dare to make a move. Unfortunately, the Galaxy King was probably still unconscious at this moment. Chen Hao, what are your plans next? In the transmission of the Galaxy Tunnel, King Ying looked at the calm Chen Hao and asked. After going through such a big event, Chen Hao at this moment acted as if nothing had happened. He was so calm that it was terrifying. King Ying and the others did not think that the Galaxy King would give up so easily. They knew the character of the Galaxy King best. No matter what the reason was, at most, it would cause him to fall into a dilemma temporarily. No one, nothing could stop his Dao unless you had greater strength. Otherwise, anyone who tried to stop his Dao would die. Step into the Hongmeng domain, Chen Hao said. That's true. You have reached the peak of the Daoist Golden Wonderland. It is indeed time to advance to the Grand Mist Supremacy realm, but you can't do it in the Hongmeng domain of the great world of Xiandi. The half-step immortal Emperor Galaxy King more or less controls part of the great world of Xiandi. He can control part of the Hongmeng domain. If you go in, we can't protect you at all. So, I suggest you go back. All right. I don't need any opponents to train myself now. The Hongmeng domain of the chaotic Grand Thousand Worlds is definitely not worse than the great world of Xiandi. It will only be stronger, Chen Hao said. After hearing Chen Hao's words, Chen Taishu was relieved and said, I say, brother, can you tell us about the immortal world? Are you really the reincarnation of a mighty figure from the upper three heavens of the immortal world? Uncle, I can't afford to be called that. Well, it's good that I didn't call you senior. After all, you are the reincarnation of a mighty figure from the immortal world. Although you are my nephew in this life, how can I call you that? Chen Taishu said. This was the truth. Facing a reincarnation of a mighty figure from the immortal world, he really didn't know how to address him. Uncle, you don't have to worry about this. First, I haven't awakened my memories, so I don't know who I am. Second, even if I awaken everything, I am still the current me. Nothing will change. You're still my uncle. As for the immortal world, hiss hiss hiss. As Chen Hao spoke, 3 rays of memory light condensed between his eyebrows and appeared in front of Chen Taishu, King Ying, and King Luoying. This is the basic information about the immortal world that I obtained from Gu Xian. I don't know myself. Chen Hao said, take a look. Chapter 1473. Dahlia College. When Chen Hao and the others arrived at Dahlia College, they received a warm welcome from the teachers and disciples of Dahlia College as well as countless cultivators in Dahlia City. Li Yuan's name resounded throughout the world. He had become the most outstanding person in Dahlia College and even Dahlia Planet. At this moment, even though Chen Hao did not deliberately gather the power of faith, he could clearly feel the terrifying increase in the power of faith. Of course, Chen Hao knew that this did not only come from Dahlia Planet, but also from many cultivators in the great world of Xiandi. All of this was due to the power of faith gathered from worship. What also surprised Chen Hao was that by the time they arrived at Dahua Academy, the entire Dehua Academy had undergone an astonishing transformation. Although it still couldn't be compared to the #1 Zhulu Academy, it was now countless times stronger than Dehua Academy in terms of area, heaven and earth spiritual qi, and heavenly Dao laws. Astonishingly, this was already a genuine top-notch academy. It's done so quickly? The Dahlia College's disciples could not help but ask. It was done not long after the results were announced. The college ranking competition has been through countless tournaments and has a mature format. The Alliance can reshuffle the cards within 2 hours and distribute the resources according to the rankings. The Alliance is so powerful? Many people were surprised, and Qinhao was no exception. You should know that the 3,000 main planets were condensed by the Alliance. Isn't it a piece of cake for them to change the world? This is a top college and it's ranked 24th. This is all thanks to Li Yuan. Cheng Wanxiang said with a slightly excited expression. Now that he had returned to Dahlia College, he still felt like he was dreaming. One person had changed an entire college. Whether it was the team competition or the individual competition, Li Yuan had turned the tide. Of course, the Grand Mist Supremacy Realm's contribution could not be ignored. At least they did not hold them back. Compared to their original ranking, they had improved a lot. Otherwise, even if Qinhao had won first place in all the competitions, Dahlia College would not have been ranked 24th. All in all, this was a miracle. An unimaginable miracle in their dreams. Li Yuan, what do you want as a reward? Magical treasures, pills, whatever you want. As long as Dahlia College can do it, we will satisfy you. I believe that no one will have any objections. Rewards. Chen Hao was slightly stunned. He did not expect Cheng Wanxiang to talk about rewards at this time. However, since he had said it, Chen Hao naturally would not reject him. He said, I don't want magical treasures. Ready-made pills are not needed as well. I want heaven and earth spiritual items and spiritual herbs. The more, the better. No matter what it is, even the lowest grade will do. Okay, Cheng Wanxiang answered, and then continued, but, the lowest level, what do you want? Spiritual pills. Of course. All along, this was a method that he was unwilling to use rashly. Because, in his opinion, no matter if it was magic treasures or medicinal pills, the increase in strength was suspicious of spoiling things through excessive enthusiasm. Especially for himself. But now, after the awakening, Chen Hao's thinking had changed. As long as he could match his current state of mind and will, any method to improve his strength would not be a problem. Although it would not be as solid as relying on his own cultivation step by step, it would not be a big problem. Of course, the more important point was that the threat from a celestial river king made him nervous. As such, he did not have much time to cultivate leisurely. Okay, you will come with me later. I will give it to you. Among the resources obtained by the college this time, all the spiritual items and spiritual medicine will belong to you, as well as a part of Dahlia College's savings. I can't give it all to you. I hope you understand. Dean, I don't have that idea. Just give me as much as you can. After all, the college consumes every day, Qinhao said. That's good. There is one more thing. Dean, Pavilion Master, I will leave Dahlia College early tomorrow morning and go to the Hongmeng domain. Wan Yishui, Ao Qian, Ling Feng, Xue Fian and the others will come with me. Oh, and Rua Lan and Rua Xian will also accompany me, Qinhao said. On the way back, Cheng Wanxiang and Pavilion Master Mo Shilin naturally could not hear his conversation with King Ying and the others. Since Chen Hao was leaving and taking so many people with him, he naturally had to let them know. However, Chen Hao did not say that the Hongmeng domain he was going to was not the Hongmeng domain of the great world of Xiandi. No problem. Cheng Wanxiang was not surprised. King Ying, King Luo Ying, and King Sword Chen Taishu had all entered Chen Hao's mind. Even if Cheng Wanxiang was a pig, he knew that Chen Hao's mind was not to be underestimated. Otherwise, King Ying and the others would not have been able to enter. This is a gift from me to the Dean and the Pavilion Master. It is a token of my appreciation. As Chen Hao spoke, he took out 2 jade bottles covered with complicated runes and handed them to the two. This is Immortal Qi. It should be beneficial to your cultivation. Immortal Qi. Cheng Wanxiang and Mo Shilin both looked extremely excited. Originally, they had already thought it through. No matter what, they had to be thick-skinned and asked Chen Hao to guide them some immortal Qi so that they could comprehend it. But now, Chen Hao was directly giving it to them. As Chen Hao spoke, he took out 2 more jade slips. One floated to Pavilion Master Mo Shilin, and the other to Cheng Wanxiang. This is an ultimate technique? Sensing the aura of the jade slips, Cheng Wanxiang asked excitedly. Although Chen Hao was only a Daoist Jingxian, who would dare treat Chen Hao as a Daoist Jingxian? That was a mighty figure from the upper 3 heavens of the immortal realm. An ultimate technique from the immortal realm should be suitable for you. It will not affect your Dao, Chen Hao said. Cheng Wanxiang and Mo Shilin both looked excited. An ultimate technique from the immortal realm, no matter what level it was beyond their imagination. Moreover, Chen Hao had given it to them as a gift, so how could it be bad? After that, Chen Hao followed Cheng Wanxiang and Mo Shilin into the Academy of Fine Arts Storehouse. The Storehouse of Fine Arts Storehouse had been upgraded to the standard of a top-notch academy. It was incomparably huge, spanning a radius of 10 billion kilometers under the laws of space. However, the treasures and herbs of heaven and earth stored inside were not even 1,000th of the total space. Even so, Chen Hao was still shocked by the mountains of herbs that were protected by countless runes. This is our Academy of Fine Arts Storehouse. Originally, it had almost filled the entire spiritual medicine storehouse, but now, it seemed empty. You can keep half of each item and take the rest. The core treasures and herbs of heaven and earth are all unique. Take them all. Chapter 1474. Dean, I won't stand on ceremony with you. Chen Hao said with a smile after a slight pause. Don't stand on ceremony with me. When you have time, just give us some of the unique skills of the immortal realm, immortal Qi, or the elixirs you refine. Also, no matter whether you live in the college or not, just remember that you are a member of the college. If you need anything, the college will always do its best to support you. Cheng Wanxiang said with a smile. In fact, Cheng Wanxiang had felt a lot of pressure when the competition ended for Chen Hao. After all, he was the reincarnation of a powerful figure from the upper 3 heavens of the immortal realm. Such a person might not be worthy of his attention in the small college of Dehua. After all, Chen Hao had awakened. But now, Cheng Wanxiang found that Chen Hao was still Fatty Li Yuan. Only his appearance and aura had changed. That's not a problem, Chen Hao said without hesitation. Cheng Wanxiang's words were not as simple as they seemed to be on the surface in Chen Hao's mind. Maybe Cheng Wanxiang did not realize the meaning of his words, but Chen Hao knew that it was an absolute trust in him and a choice at the same time. After all, everyone knew about the matter between him and the Star River King. It was impossible to let it go. Although King Luoying, King Ying, and Chen Hao were all on Chen Hao's side, the odds of winning against the Star River King were slim. However, Cheng Wanxiang did not hesitate at all. He did not hesitate when he was on Zhulu Peak, and he did not hesitate at this moment. That's good, Cheng Wanxiang said. However, I am now restricted by my realm, so I can't refine elixirs suitable for you for the time being. When I step into the Grand Mist Supremacy realm, there should be no problem. Don't worry, Cheng Wanxiang said. Chen Hao did not say anything more. He opened his big hand and started directly. In an instant, countless spiritual medicines and spiritual items of heaven and earth left the protection of the runes, turned into streamers, and disappeared into the space between Chen Hao's eyebrows. Each mountain of medicinal plants contained a type of spiritual medicine of heaven and earth, and Chen Hao had taken half of them. This was equivalent to the savings of a first-rate institute over countless years. How much was half? However, Chen Hao didn't stand on ceremony. Right now, he needed spiritual herbs and spiritual items. Even though there were so many of them, they weren't considered much to him. Because not only did he do it for himself, he also did it for his women, his brothers and sisters, and even more people in the ancient chaos Great Thousand World. No matter how strong a person was, there was a limit to their abilities. Chen Hao could not restrict his freedom just to protect someone or a place. He could protect her for a while, but he couldn't protect her forever. Everyone could only rely on themselves. This is just the foundation of a first-rate academy, yet it has so much. What if it was a top-tier academy? I'm afraid it will really fill up the entire space. Southly fire fruit? Good stuff. With its vitality intact, it won't take long for an immortal fruit tree to grow and bear the southernly fire immortal fruit. Chen Hao was slightly excited when he saw that there was only one spiritual medicine of heaven and earth, which was burning like a flame on a mountain of medicinal plants protected by runes. The reason why Chen Hao only wanted spiritual herbs and spiritual items and not finished elixirs was that after awakening the inheritance of an absolute art and gaining a certain understanding of the immortal world through the godheads of Gu Xian and the others, Chen Hao was no longer interested in ordinary elixirs. Even the best elixirs in the great world of Xian Di were nothing in his eyes. He only needed to implant spiritual herbs and spiritual items into his mind to use the Tao manifestation immortal fruit tree, the tree of life, the spirit spring sea, and the abnormal space-time laws to cultivate the grade of spiritual herbs in the immortal world. After Chen Hao could draw in the immortal qi of the immortal world, the Tao manifestation immortal fruit tree and the tree of life had already connected with the aura of the immortal world. They were constantly inhaling and exhaling large amounts of immortal qi into Chen Hao's mind. The spirit spring sea was assimilated by the immortal qi. It could be said that Chen Hao's mind was the lesser immortal world. Coupled with the abnormal space-time laws, 10,000 or 100,000 years old elixirs were no problem. Chaos element immortal herb. That's right. With the nourishment of immortal qi and the space-time laws, I only need 3 years to cultivate the chaos element immortal herb. This is one of the main ingredients for refining chaos immortal pills. Xiaowu needs it very much. Grand white gold crystal? That's right. It's a pity that the conditions and time to nurture spiritual items are much more complicated than spiritual herbs. With my current ability, I can't condense an environment to nurture it. I can only put it aside for now. I should be able to do it after I step into the Grand Mist Supremacy realm. Chen Hao shuttled through the spiritual herb storehouse at lightning speed. Everywhere he passed, the mountains of herbs were reduced by half, and the unique spiritual items and spiritual herbs were emptied. However, with such a large number of herbs, Chen Hao would need a few hours to collect them all no matter how fast he was. Dean Cheng Wanxiang and Mo Shilin couldn't wait to sit down cross-legged and look at each other excitedly. Ultimate technique from the immortal world, immortal qi, the reincarnation of an almighty from the immortal world. Dean, I feel like I'm dreaming. Is this really little fatty? Nonsense, how could it be fake? Let's take a look at the ultimate technique first. Mo Shilin, let me tell you first. The ultimate technique that Li Yuan taught you belongs to you, but it also belongs to Dehua Academy. You can't take it all for yourself. Ahem, of course. It belongs to the true martial pavilion, so how can it not belong to Dehua Academy? Dean, you can take a look if you want, but the others will have to go through the true martial pavilion. You don't have any objections, do you? Mo Shilin said without hesitation. You're really cunning, kid. However, we'll do as you say. After all, what suits you and won't affect your Tao origin should only be suitable for the true martial pavilion. However, the true martial pavilion can manage it, but the qualification to cultivate it must be set to the highest level, and it must be approved by me. All right, Dean, can I take a look at your ultimate technique as well? Don't bite off more than you can chew. Let's talk about it after you've mastered it. Let's see what kind of ultimate technique it is first. Cheng Wanxiang said as he took out the jade slip that Chen Hao had given him and immersed his mind into it. Buzz. Is crack. The moment Cheng Wanxiang's mind immersed into it, the jade slip vibrated, and beams of dazzling immortal light entered Cheng Wanxiang's glabella. There were as many as 81 beams. The jade slip shattered and lost its luster. 81 beams? Mo Shilin's eyes widened in surprise. Usually, only one beam of memory light was recorded on a jade slip. However, there were 81 beams. Didn't that mean there were 81 types of ultimate techniques? 81 Types of Ultimate Techniques. A moment later, Chen Wanxiang opened his eyes excitedly, proving Mo Xilin's guess. And it's definitely 81 types of ultimate techniques from the immortal world. Although Chen Wanxiang had only glanced at it once and didn't have time to examine it carefully, he could tell that it was definitely an extremely powerful ultimate technique from the immortal world. Chapter 1475. Quick, take a look at yours. Chen Wanxiang said impatiently. Okay. Mo Xilin nodded and took a deep breath to calm the excitement in his heart. Then he merged his divine sense into the jade slip Chen Hao had given him. Unfortunately, this time, only a ray of divine light appeared and entered Mo Xilin's forehead. But after a moment, Mo Xilin wasn't disappointed at all. Instead, he opened his eyes excitedly and said, "True martial heavenly sovereign technique. It's many times more profound than our true martial Dao. Heavenly sovereign, is this a heavenly sovereign ultimate technique? It can't be." Chen Wanxiang was stunned. True martial heavenly sovereign technique? Just the name clearly told them that this was a heavenly sovereign ultimate technique. How strong was it? And since Chen Hao was passing it to them now, it was naturally an ultimate technique that could be cultivated directly and improved as one's realm increased. It seems that Li Yuan is deliberately helping your true martial pavilion. From now on, the true martial pavilion of Dehua Academy will replace the Great Transformation Pavilion as the #1 pavilion. This true martial heavenly sovereign technique will be the ultimate technique of Dehua Academy. Mo Xilin smiled excitedly. Dean, look at our divine energy? I think this jade bottle isn't simple. I can't understand the runes on it at all. Cough, cough, it's not just you who can't understand it. I can't understand it either. Forget it, there's nothing to be embarrassed about. I'm afraid this is a very powerful sealing ability even in the immortal realm. Li Yuan still needs a while. I'll open it first. But, how do I open it? I can't use my divine sense at all. How do pigs die? Dean, why don't you try yours first? If I can't use my divine sense, I'll have to use a drop of blood to make it recognize me as its master. So stupid. Watch me. Chen Wanxiang forced a drop of blood essence onto the jade bottle and activated his divine sense at the same time. But, why not? Chen Wanxiang said awkwardly. I was saying that a jade bottle can't recognize anyone as its master. Mo Xilin gloated. Obviously, dripping blood on it was useless. I think we should ask Li Yuan, Dean? What for? How shameful. It's just a bottle, it can't recognize an owner, it can't be opened, and it can't be opened by force. In other words, only those who have comprehended the runes on it can do so. Chen Wanxiang glared at Mo Xilin and said, looks like this is Li Yuan's idea. It's not easy for us to comprehend immortal qi. Perhaps the runes on the jade bottle are meant to enlighten us. Chen Wanxiang was unperturbed. Mo Xilin felt that Chen Wanxiang's words made a lot of sense. However, on the other side, Chen Hao, who was collecting spirit herbs and spiritual items, couldn't help but remind them, Dean, that rune is just a seal. It's really just a seal. Can't you see that this jade bottle is the most ordinary jade bottle? All you need to do is to shatter it in your mind's great world, and the immortal qi will naturally come out. Cough, cough, ha. Chen Wanxiang's old face immediately turned red while Mexilin laughed out loud. But when they listened to Chen Hao and absorbed the jade bottle into their minds and shattered it, Chen Wanxiang's embarrassment turned into shock, and Mo Xilin's laughter stopped abruptly. The boundless, majestic immortal qi was completely beyond their imagination. How was this just a little bit for them to comprehend? That majestic immortal qi was enough to fill up an area of 10 billion square miles. With a single thought, the two of them, who had absolute control over their minds, sealed off an area of 10 billion square miles and turned it into a space of immortal qi. Thank you. No, Li Yuan, thank you. Chen Wanxiang and Mo Xilin looked gratefully at Chen Hao, who was still collecting spirit herbs in the distance. All they wanted was a ray of sunshine, but Chen Hao gave them a ray of sunshine. King Ying, I'm done. 8 hours later, Chen Hao's voice appeared in the ears of King Ying, who was sitting cross-legged and surrounded by boundless immortal qi. At this moment, King Ying was in Chen Hao's mind. You're done? Then I'll go out. Why don't I do it? You can merge your mind with mine, and my speed should be faster. Chen Hao said. All right. It's a good opportunity to see the ability to travel through space. King Ying smiled. When Chen Hao decided to return to the ancient chaos Great Thousand World to advance to the Grand Mist Supremacy Realm, King Ying and the others made the decision to let their elite disciples follow Chen Hao. The huge Jade Maiden Palace had harsh conditions for recruiting disciples. It could be said that every one of them was a genius in the great world of Xiandi, and they were all beautiful women who had not lost their primordial Yin body. Their elite disciples were 1 in a billion. They were also the future hope of the Jade Maiden Palace. Of course, King Ying wanted to choose those who followed Chen Hao to be from the Daoist Golden Wonderland. It was meaningless to choose those who were from the Grand Mist Supremacy Realm. Also, King Ying wanted to move the entire Jade Maiden Palace to the Great Star. This was to unite the Luo Ying King, the Sword King, and the Great Star Academy to resist the Star River King's actions. After all, once the Star River King woke up from his shock, he would not let this matter rest. King Ying opened his mind and merged his mind with Chen Hao's. Principal, Pavilion Master, farewell. Chen Hao waved his hand and disappeared from the storehouse. Amazing! Is this the ability to travel through space? King Ying, who had merged his mind with Chen Hao, exclaimed in surprise as he felt the endless mysteries of space around him. Only the heavenly venerable Godhead has this ability. However, due to the restriction of my cultivation realm, I can only display 1% of my heavenly venerable Godhead's ability. 1%? I feel that this speed is faster than the Star River Tunnel. Should be. Chen Hao said, King Ying, I have a suggestion, but I don't know if I should say it. Say it, no need to be polite with me. You're his disciple, which means you're my. Hee. Calling you my disciple seems inappropriate. Say it. King Ying said. All right, what do you think, you and the disciples of the Jade Maiden Palace who are willing to follow you to the ancient chaos world? The ancient chaos world has been unified, and the supreme heavenly Tao is no weaker than the great world of Xiandi, maybe even stronger. That way, you and Master Yilan can be reunited, and you can leave this place temporarily. After all, even if you join forces, you're still no match for the Star River King and the Xiao family. No! King Ying shook his head. Why not? Because of the contract. I can't leave the great world of Xiandi, and I can't go to the ancient chaos world to reunite with him. Moreover, even without the contract, I can't leave. The Jade Maiden Palace is my 100 million years of hard work. It's not something that can be solved by taking away all the disciples. Besides, if we all leave, won't the Star River King be able to do whatever he wants? What about the Great Star Academy? There are too many aspects involved. Chapter 1476. King Ying paused for a moment, then continued, Furthermore, my life essence is here. At my level, only in the Immortal Emperor's Great Thousand Worlds can I hope to improve further. There's such a thing? Chen Hao was slightly taken aback. So, if I reach the true Immortal King realm, I have to return to the greater world of Earth? That's not it. You have no problem in ancient chaos or the great world of Xiandi. After all, whether it's ancient chaos or the Immortal Emperor, you have gathered extremely powerful luck, unlike me. Oh! Chen Hao understood what King Ying meant. He knew that his thinking was too simple. For hundreds of millions of years, King Ying had been growing up in the great world of Xiandi. There were many things that she could not give up. This was her foundation, and naturally, it became the only place for her to prove her Tao. Perhaps this was one of the reasons why King Luoying and King of Swords did not follow him to ancient chaos. After all, King Luoying and Chen Hao did not have their own forces. If they wanted to leave, it would be easy. However, they still gave up on Chen Hao's cultivation space, which was comparable to a small immortal realm, and stayed. The Jade Maiden Palace is not far ahead. Come with me. When King Ying confirmed that they were about to reach the Jade Maiden Palace, Chen Hao stopped traveling through space. King Ying stepped out of Chen Hao's mind space and looked ahead. Chen Hao replied. Half an hour later, the two passed through the layers of restrictions and came to the beautiful Jade Maiden Palace in the void. The palaces were surrounded by celestial mist and light. The spiritual energy and Tao laws of heaven and earth were extremely dense. It was even denser than the first academy's Zhu Lang Academy. Greetings, Palace Master. Welcome back, Palace Master. At the instant the two of them appeared, numerous powerful auras gushed over as they bowed. They were actually all true immortal kings, and each of them seemed to be around 30 years of age. They were all extremely beautiful women with great charm and charm. Sixth Elder, gather all the elite disciples of the Daoist Golden Wonderland. In 10 hours, gather at my palace. Yes, Palace Lord. Li Yuan, I'll send you to our Jade Maiden Palace's elixir storehouse. You should be able to collect everything within 10 hours. You don't have to refuse, I know you need it. Furthermore, my disciple will need elixirs as well. I'll be relying on you in the future. Prince Ying said. Prince Ying, how can this be? You're welcome. This is just the elixir storehouse of our Jade Maiden Palace's headquarters. Jade Maiden Palace has a total of 1,000 branches and hundreds of millions of years of accumulation. There are many heaven and earth elixirs. Although this is the headquarters, it's only less than 1% of our Jade Maiden Palace's heritage. Chi. Prince Ying pointed a finger at Chen Hao and sent him into the Jade Maiden Palace's elixir storehouse without any further explanation. She knew that Chen Hao had asked Qing Wanxiang for a spiritual herb, so even though Chen Hao hadn't asked her for it, she had taken the initiative to give it to him. Because she knew very well that Daoist Academy was just a first-class academy before, and couldn't be compared with Jade Maiden Palace's heritage. Even the elixir storehouse of the headquarters was thousands of times more than Daoist Academy's. Palace Lord, is he Daoist Academy's Li Yuan? The girls looked at Chen Hao's disappearing figure and asked in surprise. Yes. He's really powerful. His state of mind and will give me a feeling that I can't shake him at all. I have the same feeling. The reincarnation of the immortal world supreme being is really too powerful. We can't compare at all. Although they didn't go to Zhulu Peak, they also watched the competition from the immortal world. Naturally, it was impossible for them not to know Chen Hao. However, they still didn't understand why Prince Ying was so generous to Li Yuan. The elixir storehouse and the headquarters elixir storehouse was the most precious thing in Jade Maiden Palace. But Prince Ying gave it all to Li Yuan. However, although they didn't understand, they didn't ask. They believed that Prince Ying had her reasons for doing so. When Chen Hao stepped into the elixir storehouse, he was shocked speechless. With hundreds of millions of years of inheritance, the second strongest force in the great world of Xiandi was indeed not comparable to an ordinary academy. Instead of calling it a elixir storehouse, it was better to call it a elixir world. Needless to say, there were many elixir mountains, but more importantly, there were many elixir gardens. Elixir gardens. Each elixir garden was an independent world. Elixirs were nurtured in it, full of vitality and rich medicinal fragrance. This method was much better than Daoist Academy's, and for Chen Hao, it saved a lot of trouble. He only needed to inject immortal qi, and there was no need to specially condense the elixir herbs in a special environment. Jade Maiden Palace, with hundreds of millions of years of inheritance, is indeed not comparable to Daoist Academy. The value of this elixir storehouse alone is thousands, tens of thousands of times more than Daoist Academy's. The heaven and earth spirit objects and heaven and earth spirit herbs here were not only much more than Daoist Academy's, but their quality was also several times higher. There was no need to keep, and most of the elixir gardens didn't need to be modified, so Chen Hao's speed of collection was very fast. In less than 5 hours, the entire elixir storehouse was empty. Li Yuan, these are the 100 elite disciples of Jade Maiden Palace's Daoist Golden Wonderland. I'll leave them to you in the future. Introduce yourselves. After collecting the elixir herbs, Chen Hao went to Prince Ying's palace. The 100 elite disciples had already arrived. What surprised Chen Hao was that the aura of any one of the 100 people was not inferior to Ning Jing, who was known as the #1 Daoist of Jade Maiden Palace. There were even a few people who were stronger than Ning Jing. What was even rarer was that they were all women with the same primordial Yin body. The only thing that Ning Jing had an absolute advantage in was her age. The 100 people looked at Chen Hao with awe, curiosity, and shyness in their eyes. Some were generous, some were reserved, some were enthusiastic, some were shy, and some were calm. They introduced themselves one by one. They are basically the top 3 disciples in the individual ranking competition in the last 100,000 years. I deliberately confined them in the Daoist realm to consolidate their realm. They are all very strong. Ning Jing is only the #1 Daoist of the current generation, so there's no need to be surprised. The Shao clan's situation is the same as our Jade Maiden Palace. The ranking competition is held once in 1,000 years, and no disciple will participate twice. Seeing Chen Hao's surprised look, Prince Ying explained directly. I see. Chen Hao said in realization. Good, all of you come in. Buzz. Chen Hao did not waste any time. He directly opened the space in his mind and sucked the 100 genius beauties into it. Prince Ying, is there anything else you want to tell me? Chen Hao asked. I've re-stepped on the path of the Immortal Emperor countless times, and I plan to do it again. Prince Ying said. Even though she had lived for hundreds of millions of years, she still had the shyness of a young girl when she talked about Yilan. Once a 7th heaven true immortal cultivator or above ascended the Emperor's celestial stairway, it meant that they had ended their cultivation journey in the immortal realm. After failing to comprehend, if they wanted to restart, it was equivalent to deleting their account and starting from scratch. The spirit realm helmet had to be replaced. Otherwise, they would not be able to step into the immortal realm again. Chapter 1477. Alright, I can tell you Master Yilan's contact number first. Chen Hao said. Yilan, who was now in the immortal realm, was naturally in the same situation as before. However, in the immortal realm, no matter where he was born, he could be contacted by contact number. No. However, to Chen Hao's surprise, King Ying shook his head and stopped him. But the contract. Whether it's in the real world or the immortal realm, I can't contact him. Otherwise, I'll be punished by the contract. You just have to tell him that I'm starting over now. What's the point of that? There is. Don't ask so many questions. Just tell him what I said, King Ying said. All right. Chen Hao said helplessly, my contact number is ***. Go. King Ying said, after I start over, I'll contact you. When you're strong enough, don't forget little Xian. Thank you, take care. Chen Hao cupped his fists and bowed. Then, his figure disappeared silently. The great world of Xian Di, the entrance to the Hongmeng domain. Powerful auras were guarding the entrance. Each aura was actually a true immortal king expert. This was something that had never happened before. In the past, there was at most a true immortal king leader and dozens of true immortals guarding the entrance. But now, they were all true immortal king experts. This change began after the end of the Academy ranking tournament, which was held once every 1,000 years. The Shao clan, which almost controlled the League of Guardians of the Greater Thousand Worlds of the Immortal Emperors, joined forces with the leaders of many major forces to seal the entrance to the Hongmeng domain. Only outsiders from other Greater Thousand Worlds could enter the Immortal Emperor's Greater Thousand Worlds. Those who did not leave the Hongmeng domain or the Grand Mist Supremacy realm were forbidden from entering the Milky Way tunnel to other greater realms. The League's explanation was that it was temporarily sealed. It could only be opened after the return of the Milky Way King. Smart people naturally knew what the League, or rather the Shao family, and countless top forces and experts in the League wanted to do. The spirits of all things. Without a doubt, this was in order to prevent the spirits of all things from truly leaving the great world of Xian Di. As for tearing through the spatial barrier and leaving through the chaotic space, it was almost impossible to truly leave. Even reincarnated immortal emperors wouldn't dare to do so. The chaotic space around the Great Thousand World was still okay, but once one went deeper, it would become more and more terrifying as the distance increased. It was easy to get lost in it and never return to the Great Thousand World. When one arrived before the entrance to Hongming region, one would notice that the true immortal kings present here were surprisingly the senior figures of the various top powers. Every single one of them possessed an identity that was sufficient to deter an entire region. I've just received news that Zhulu Academy has caught another soul of all creatures after the Shao clan. His name is Pei Chen, and he's one of the top 100 in the Daoist Golden Wonderland. An old man sitting cross-legged said, "Amazing! Zhulu Academy deserved to be called the #1 academy. Who would be the next one? It's only been a few days. I don't think any of them can escape." That's right. When the Celestial River King returns, it will be even faster. However, no matter what, the biggest winner this time is Daihua Academy. That Li Yuan is really scary. He's the reincarnation of a mighty figure from the upper three heavens of the immortal world. What's even more terrifying is that the strongest Su Junfeng and Song Long Yuan were killed by him and taken away. Everything is temporary. The Celestial River King will not let Li Yuan go. Even if King Ying, King Luo Ying and King Sword were to protect him, they would not be able to stop the Celestial River King. I know this better than all of you. The old man in the middle said proudly. That's natural. Elder Lu, you're from the same era as the Celestial River King. Yes, Elder Lu is not inferior to a king. Even the Celestial River King calls Elder Lu brother. However, Elder Lu, I'm curious. What happened on Zhulu Peak that even the Celestial River King was provoked? It's a pity that we weren't there. It's related to the Celestial River King's sister. The old man who was flattered said in a low voice, "You may not have heard, but the Celestial River King has a sister he loves the most, Xiao Xingyu. The two of them have been relying on each other since childhood. They are both heaven-defying geniuses. The Celestial River King's sister, Xiao Xingyu, is even more outstanding than the Celestial River King. However, after the two of them advanced to the sixth heaven of cutting Dao true immortal, Xiao Xingyu suddenly disappeared from the cultivation world. There was no news of her. Not long after that, the Celestial River King's cultivation base advanced by leaps and bounds. He advanced to the seventh heaven of cutting Dao true immortal and stepped on the path of the immortal emperor. Until now, hundreds of millions of years have passed. Xiao Xingyu seems to have disappeared from the world. I didn't expect that there would be news of her now. I also heard from the older generation that the Celestial River King has an even more talented sister. It seems that King Ying and the Celestial River King's sister look very similar. Did your old ancestor say that? Yes, Elder Lu. This kind of thing can only be talked about by the few of us. Otherwise, it might lead to a fatal disaster. The Celestial River King's temper can't tolerate any flaws. It is said that the real reason why the Celestial River King likes King Ying is because King Ying resembles his most beloved sister. On the day of the ranking competition, Ruo Lan and Ruo Xian of the Dahua Academy, Meng Lan and Meng Xian of the Zhulu Academy, revealed the same origin aura as the Celestial River King. Moreover, the two of them were 2 lives of the 9 lives profound technique. The Celestial River King thought that the two of them were his sisters. He was shocked and excited. However, the two of them said that they were Xiao Xingyu's daughters. It can't be. According to Ruo Xian, it seems that Xiao Xingyu is dead. Perhaps the Celestial River King was stimulated by this and directly tore through the space barrier like a madman. Moreover, it is said that the way the Celestial River King looked at Ruo Xian and Ruo Lan was very strange. It was shining with all kinds of complicated emotions. The old man stopped and didn't continue. Guess what? Swear on the highest law. It's not that I don't trust you, but if my guess is revealed, I will definitely be killed. So serious? Alright, since Elder Lu said so, we will swear on it. This was a secret related to the #1 person in the great world of Xian Di, the Celestial River King. Even if the people present were old antiques, they couldn't help but be curious. Elder Lu was undoubtedly one of the people who knew the Celestial River King the best. After all, He was one of the strongest people in the Celestial River King's generation. He was in existence second only to the 8 great emperors. No one knew that when they started discussing, a hidden figure, who was about to step into the Hongmeng domain's entrance, was attracted by the topic of their discussion and stopped. This person was naturally Chen Hao. P.S. I've made up for what I owe. From today onwards, I will update 1 chapter a day. Don't scold me. Dark Mountain has no choice. They have their difficulties. They can't publish until the 65th volume of traditional Chinese novels. They can't publish anymore. If you're impatient, you can rest for a while before killing. Everyone can feel that Dark Mountain is speeding up the pace. Sigh, I can't help it. It will be over in 3 or 4 months at most. Thank you. Book 513195352, Tianmen, and other book friends who have supported Dark Mountain. I'm sorry. Chapter 1478. Chen Hao and the others were unable to enter the space tunnel that led to the ancient chaos Great Thousand Worlds through the Grand Mist domain. This was because when Chen Hao, the women, and Chen Nen had left the ancient chaos Great Thousand Worlds, they had severed all connection with the ancient chaos Great Thousand Worlds. In fact, with the ability to travel through space and the heavenly dragon mount, Chen Hao was in a hurry to find the location of the chaotic space when he came to the vast thousand domains of the Immortal Emperor. It was not difficult for him to enter the Star River Tunnel. There was no need to go through the Hongmeng domain. However, Chen Hao still came to the entrance of the Hongmeng domain. This was because, even though he had completely refined and integrated several great lives, the third life, which was the life of the Mad Demon realm, had not been erased. At that time, the one who really got Nguyen Tan Lan was Chen Hao's original body, who had completely cleaned up his mess in the Mad Demon realm and saved Nguyen Tan Lan's life. No matter what Nguyen Tan Lan's purpose of getting close to him, or whether it was a romantic union, she was after all a woman he had completely gotten. If they had no more interactions after leaving, it would have been fine. However, the news that Chen Hao had received from Zhou Qinglong and the others made Chen Hao unable to ruthlessly erase the obsession in his heart. Perhaps it was driven by interests at first, but now Nguyen Tan Lan, because of him, had broken the seal of the master of the vast thousand chaotic world again and again. How strong was her obsession to be able to do that? At this moment, she had fallen into a demonic barrier and was trapped in the Hongmeng domain of the vast thousand chaotic world. The one who started the trouble must be the one to end it. Perhaps only Chen Hao could help her step out of the demonic barrier. Therefore, Chen Hao had to go to the vast thousand chaotic world first to untie Nguyen Tan Lan's knot in her heart. He did not expect to hear the discussion of these old guys as soon as he arrived. Although they had shielded the world, it was useless for Chen Hao's current perception. Rulin and Ruoxian should be the Star River King and his sister. What? Ah! The old man's words not only caused all the old fellows present to widen their eyes in shock, but even Chen Hao, who had merged with all living things in the world, was a little dumbfounded. If it wasn't for the fact that his mental state was so strong that it was abnormal, he would have been exposed. In fact, back then, although Celestial River King's talent was heaven-defying, he was not as good as these two people. One of them is naturally his sister, Xiao Xingyu. As for the other one, you should have more or less heard of her before. She is Yi Lan from the ancient chaos Great Thousand World. She is Prince Ying's Dao companion. But Yi Lan was still defeated by the Star River King? Moreover, it was before he became an immortal emperor. Not bad. Back then, the Celestial River King and the other 7 conferred kings, as well as Xiao Xingyu's group of 9, formed a battle team. The relationship between the Celestial River King and King Ying was basically a clear Dao companion. At least, everyone in the world knew about it. It was just that no one knew about it. If it had always been 9 people, there wouldn't have been any unforeseen circumstances. However, a dazzling newcomer suddenly appeared in the immortal world. This newcomer was extremely talented, and he was accidentally spotted by Celestial River King and the others, who then recruited him into their genius squad. This newcomer was Yi Lan. In less than 1,000 years, Yi Lan became an existence that was close to the strongest of the 10, Xiao Xingyu. During this 1,000 years of contact, Xiao Xingyu, King Ying, and King Luo Ying, these three heaven-defying women, all fell in love with the amazingly talented Yi Lan. Elder Lu, does this have anything to do with your guess? Someone could not help but ask. Of course it has something to do with it. I said it was a guess, but the truth is not far from it. You will understand after I finish. Elder Lu, King Ying and Celestial River King were already Dao companions in name. How could they fall in love with Yi Lan? Someone could not help but ask, wouldn't this make the Celestial River King mad? No one would be able to stand it. Yes, it's a pity. The Celestial River King, who was originally the core of the battle team, found out that his talent and combat strength were not as good as Yi Lan's. How could he be mad? Finally, when Yi Lan and King Ying suddenly took a step forward, which was when King Ying lost her primordial Yin body, this genius squad that was known throughout the great world of Xian broke apart. At that time, they were all sixth heaven-cutting Dao true immortals. The Celestial River King left with his sad sister, Xiao Xingyu, while the others were still with Yi Lan and King Ying. This was also the reason why the Celestial River King did not let go of King Ling Feng, the Old Sword King, and the others. I seem to know what happened. Then, Xiao Xingyu disappeared, and the Celestial River King's strength suddenly skyrocketed. His talent also became more powerful. It seems that you have also figured out the key. During the ranking competition, the conversation between Ruoxian and the Celestial River King. I think that if it was only the news of Xiao Xingyu's death, it would not be enough to make the Celestial River King go mad. What really stimulated him was Ruoxian and Ruolin's daughter. So ruthless! Chen Hao was extremely shocked. Even he did not expect that the Celestial River King's body contained such a terrible thing. It was only at this time that Chen Hao finally understood how much pain Ruoxian had suffered. She had created a pure land for her other half, Ruolin. Ruolin did not know anything. If not for this time, Ruolin would not even know that she was Ruoxian's life. Poor Ruoxian. However, King Ying and Master Yi Lan. In the world, the most difficult thing to determine who was right and who was wrong was the hatred and enmity that came from love. Who was right and who was wrong? Chen Hao knew that this old man's guess might be the truth. The Celestial River King had obtained the primordial Yin of his genius sister, Xiao Xingyu, and even started dual cultivation. No one knew the details, but it was more or less like this. That was why the Celestial River King had advanced by leaps and bounds. He was the first to be conferred the title of king, severely injuring Yi Lan and forcing her back to the ancient chaos boundless world to sign a contract with King Ying. Because King Feng Ling, King Sword, and the others did not follow him, he forced them away one by one and killed them. And King Luo Ying, who liked Yi Lan, was killed by the Celestial River King. Chen Hao shook his head and did not think about it anymore. A light flashed between his eyebrows, and the perverted Zhou Qinglong appeared directly. In an instant, Chen Hao disappeared between Zhou Qinglong's eyebrows. Everything happened silently. After Zhou Qinglong stepped into the entrance of the Hongming region, no one noticed the slightest clue. Phew, you scared me to death. Handsome boss, you are so powerful. So many powerful true immortal kings and so many restrictions, but no one noticed me, hee hee. Don't talk nonsense, hurry up and enter. When Zhou Qinglong activated the Star River Tunnel with his own aura connection with the ancient chaos boundless world, he entered Chen Hao's mind again. Chen Hao directly summoned the heavenly dragon mount, sat cross-legged on its back, and quickly shuttled back and forth. He left. Chen Hao did not expect to leave the great world of Xian in just a few hundred years. What he also did not expect was that the experience of these few hundred years could definitely be described as soul-stirring. The ancient chaos boundless world should still take some time. I have to hurry up and cultivate in the immortal world space. Chen Hao sensed the ancient and mysterious aura of the Star River Tunnel. 2 rays of crystal light flashed in his eyes, and he directly entered the immortal world space. Chapter 1479. Embarking on the path of the Immortal Emperor was a necessary experience for every cultivator who wanted to reach the peak of the martial way. The realm in the immortal realm could advance side by side with the realm in the vast thousand domains. This was undoubtedly the best state, and it was a once-in-a-lifetime state for all cultivators. For experts like the Star River King and Prince Ying who had failed on the path to becoming immortal emperors, even if they wanted to start anew, unless they sealed their true bodies, they could only start from the immortal world space at the Daoist Golden Immortal Realm. After all, experts like them could no longer seal their realm in reality unless they stepped into the endless cycle of reincarnation and completely forgot who they were. Chen Hao's realm in the immortal realm had not yet advanced to the great circle of the Daoist Golden Wonderland, so it was naturally his top priority now. Buzz. With a shake of his body, Chen Hao appeared in the immortal realm, but he did not directly appear in the vast thousand domains on Earth. He was still intercepted in the illusory controller space. "You're here?" Yang Liuyan's pleasant voice immediately appeared in Chen Hao's ears. "I'm here," Chen Hao said. "Why didn't you refine Su Juanfeng's godhead?" To Chen Hao's surprise, Yang Liuyan once again saw through him. The one who spoke was Su Junfeng. "I want to, but I've already done my best to suppress his godhead. Refining it is temporarily impossible," Chen Hao said with a frown. Chen Hao had already tried before, but once his mind penetrated the core of Su Juanfeng's godhead, he would be ejected by a terrifying force. The origin aura of that force did not seem to belong to Su Junfeng at all. This puzzled Chen Hao, so he could only give up temporarily and use the old god and the mysterious existence to suppress it. "So there's a blessing? Blessing? What blessing? Whose blessing?" Chen Hao asked. "Naturally, it's the blessing of the immortal realm. Su Juanfeng's birth is unique in the immortal realm. You killed the spirit of all things he gave birth to and suppressed his godhead. You have to be careful when you step into the immortal realm in the future," Yang Liuyan said. Chen Hao frowned slightly. The immortal world is the same as your greater thousand worlds. No matter how terrifying the war is, it's impossible to truly wipe out all the cultivators of the various races. In the current immortal world, the revival of ancient almighty beings and the awakening of the spirits of all living beings is much greater than in the great thousand worlds. Then, what you mean is that Su Junfeng's background is very strong, right? After a brief moment of surprise, Chen Hao said. Chen Hao had long thought of such a situation. Even if the immortal world had experienced the great war between the immortal, demon, and celestial realms, it was impossible for it to be wiped out completely. It was just cutting off and sealing the connection with the great wide world. Not bad. Furthermore, there were far more spirits of all living things awakened in the ancient chaos great thousand worlds than in the great world of Xiandi. Not only were there almighty immortals, but there were also gods and devils. All right, I've given you enough information. Go. After Yang Liuyan finished speaking, she did not wait for Chen Hao to explain. Instead, she directly sent Chen Hao to the upper-class world on Earth. Raising his head to look at the boundless void, Chen Hao revealed a faint smile and shook his head. "I've long known that the road to the peak of martial arts can't be smooth sailing." Sure enough. No wonder Master Yi Lan hasn't logged into the immortal world space recently. It seems that the ancient chaos great thousand worlds is no longer peaceful. Moreover, it is more serious than in the great world of Xiandi. Fortunately, the awakening of spirits of all living things basically starts from the Daoist Golden Wonderland. This year's ranking competition in the great world of Xiandi was enough to prove that the awakening realm chosen by the spirits of all living things was the Daoist Golden Wonderland, which was the most moldable. There was no doubt about this. Just looking at the brilliance of the Daoist Golden Wonderland was enough to explain everything. Phew. No matter what, it's more important to improve my strength first. Chen Hao focused his mind and immersed himself in the comprehension of cultivation. Immortal Scripture City in the chaotic vast thousand worlds. This day happened to be half a month before the opening of the Immortal Scripture's sacred land. It was also the first day that countless genius disciples in the chaotic vast thousand worlds entered the Immortal Scripture City. It was very lively. "Look, Huang Tianhua." It's better to meet him than to hear about him. He is Huang Tianhua? What a strong aura. I feel that even the masters at the peak of the late stage of the Grandmist Supremacy realm are not as strong as him. Yeah, only such a genius would be able to enter the primordial domain and be summoned by the city governor to enter the immortal scripture grounds to comprehend it once more. In my opinion, Huang Tianhua will probably be the next city governor. What's there to be afraid of? This is already known to the higher-ups. It is said that he has already comprehended 150 levels, breaking the record of the city masters of the immortal scripture. Since the 9 great evildoers stepped into the Hongmeng domain and left our chaotic vast thousand worlds, his luck has directly soared. His current strength is probably comparable to that of the 9 great evildoers. Countless disciples of the chaotic vast thousand worlds looked up at the most dazzling figure and buzzed in discussion. This handsome figure was Huang Tianhua, the youngest evildoer from the Chaos College that Qinhao had met in the past. Now, he looked a little more mature, but he had become extremely cold and arrogant. His entire aura seemed to be one with the heavens and earth. His every move caused the energy of the heavens and earth to surge. Obviously, he had already reached the peak of the Daoist Golden Wonderland and was in the state where he was the heavens and earth, and he was the heavens and earth. Humph, catch up? What are the 9 great evildoers? How long have they cultivated? How long has Brother Hua been cultivating? Even so, the strength of the 9 great evildoers back then is not even worthy of carrying Brother Hua's shoes now. What 150 levels? Let me tell you, Brother Hua has a chance to understand the ultimate meaning of the 3 great immortal scriptures this time. Hearing the discussions of the crowd, one of Huang Tianhua's lackeys with an arrogant expression said proudly, "Yes, how can the 9 great evildoers' talent be compared to Brother Hua's? I'm afraid they would have died in the great world of Xiandi by now. Not to mention the 9 great evildoers, even Li Mubai, who defeated the 9 great evildoers back then, is nothing in front of Brother Hua. Brother Huang is indeed strong, very strong. Now, he may be the first Daoist in the chaotic Grand Thousand world. But don't you two think you're exaggerating? Not to mention senior brother Li Mubai, even senior sister Nguyen Tan Lan, Brother Huang has never defeated her, right?" A young disciple stepped forward and looked at the 2 boastful guys beside Huang Tianhua and spoke disdainfully. Whoosh! Everyone was stunned and looked at the person who spoke. Everyone knew that although the words were directed at the 2 lackeys, they were directed at Huang Tianhua. After all, Huang Tianhua's expression did not change at all when the 2 lackeys said that. Obviously, he agreed very much. Who's this? He seems to be a newcomer who is participating for the first time, from the Hunyuan sect. The rising number 1 genius of the Hunyuan sect, Han Fei. Someone in the crowd suddenly said the name of the young disciple. He's Han Fei? The pro-disciple of the 5th Supreme Elder of the Hunyuan sect, and also Li Mubai's junior brother. No wonder he stood out to refute. After knowing the identity of the young man, everyone automatically dispersed into a circle and was ready to watch a good show. Chapter 1480. Han Fei, a disciple of the Hunyuan sect, had shown his prowess the moment he stepped into the Daoist Golden Wonderland. He was chosen by the Hunyuan sect's 5th Grand Elder, and since then he had skyrocketed. In just over 100 years, he had ascended to the Daoist Golden Wonderland. Even though he was still in the early stages of the Daoist Golden Wonderland, his combat prowess had risen to the throne of the Hunyuan sect's number 1 Grand Luo. His terrifying speed of rise and his combat prowess were second only to Li Mubai. This also made the Hunyuan sect's 5th Grand Elder, Duan Ziyu, known as the best teacher in the world. "You are the Hunyuan sect's Han Fei?" Huang Tianhua, who had the demeanor of an expert, finally spoke. There was a hint of disdain in his eyes. That's right. Han Fei was neither servile nor overbearing. The number 1 Grand Luo of the Hunyuan sect. You will soon be a new student of the Primordial Chaos College, right? I dare not call myself the number 1 Grand Luo. I was just lucky. But it's true that I joined the Primordial Chaos College, Han Fei said in a low voice. You seem to be unconvinced by me? Huang Tianhua's aura soared to a terrifying level. Even the aura of the Immortal Sutra in the void spiraled around him, shocking everyone. This was clearly a resonance formed by the extremely high level of understanding of the three great Immortal Sutras. It's important to know one's limits. I admit that I'm not your match for now. Han Fei frowned. You mean I don't know? Boom. As Huang Tianhua spoke, he took a slight step towards Han Fei. Immediately, a boundless pressure descended from the sky and pressed down on Han Fei's body. Han Fei wanted to say something, but under Huang Tianhua's terrifying pressure, he could no longer speak. The veins on his face bulged, and cold sweat dripped down. At the same time, a force that forced him to bend his knees crazily squeezed him. You're only in the early stages of the Daoist Golden Wonderland. So what if you're Nguyen Tan Lan? So what if he was Li Mubai? Not to mention that they don't exist anymore. Even if they do, they can only kneel in front of me, Huang Tianhua, and beg for mercy. Huang Tianhua's expression suddenly became extremely ferocious, with a hint of madness. Especially when he mentioned the names of Nguyen Tan Lan and Li Mubai, his eyes almost spat fire. What caused everyone's hearts to palpitate even more was that the space between his eyebrows was slightly twitching. Every time it twitched, everyone had the urge to worship him. Unfortunately, no one present knew what it was. If Chen Hao and other cultivators from the great world of Xiandi saw it, they would be able to recognize what it was even if Huang Tianhua did not fully activate it. Taboo. Nguyen Tan Lan is Huang Tianhua's taboo. Sure enough. While many people were shocked, they thought of Huang Tianhua's painstaking pursuit of Nguyen Tan Lan, but he was always rejected and beaten into a pig's head. It was not until one time when Nguyen Tan Lan, who was in the devil's domain, destroyed his physical body and almost destroyed his body and soul that he stopped. 200 years later, what shocked the entire chaotic vast thousand world was that not only was his combat power not damaged, but it had also improved tremendously. He was also infinitely valued by the city lord of Xian Sutra City. Unfortunately, when he wanted to find Nguyen Tan Lan to settle accounts, Nguyen Tan Lan had already stepped out of the devil's domain and successfully promoted to the supreme of Hongmeng, and then disappeared from the chaotic vast thousand world. Kneel down. Huang Tianhua's aura suddenly increased again. Han Fei was also shocked to the extreme at this moment. He knew that he was no match for Huang Tianhua, but he did not expect Huang Tianhua to be so powerful. Otherwise, even if he wanted to fight for justice for his senior brother whom he had never met and save face for the Hunyuan sect, he would have to endure for the time being to avoid humiliating himself. Because the gap between them was too big, just the pressure alone made him unable to resist, and he vomited blood and was seriously injured. But he had to persevere. Even if he died, he had to persevere until the last moment. He could not kneel down. Crack, 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 crack. The sound of bones being crushed continuously came from Huang Tianhua's body. His whole body was drenched in cold sweat, and blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. But his knees were still stiff. Isn't Han Fei known as the first Grand Luo of the Hunyuan sect? How can he be so weak that he can't even withstand Huang Tianhua's pressure? No, it's not that Han Fei is weak, but Huang Tianhua is too strong. We only felt less than 1/10,000th of his pressure, but I have the urge to bow down and worship him. How much pressure must Han Fei have to withstand? This pressure can specifically target him. He's too strong. Did you just find out? If I told you that 3 days ago, Brother Hua killed a cutting path perfected immortal, how would you feel? Oh, and it was the third heaven. What bullshit 9 great evildoers. Bullshit Li Mubai, you don't even have the qualifications to carry Brother Hua's shoes. Kneel, kid, kneel to Brother Hua, it's your honor. At this time, although the lackey's words were really arrogant, no one dared to question him. Killing a cutting path perfected immortal. What kind of concept was that? Huang Tianhua was just Daoist Jingxian. More importantly, at this moment, although they didn't make a move, Han Fei was obviously seriously injured. For the sake of his dignity, he could die directly. But the city lord of Immortal Scripture City didn't stop him. It was impossible that the city lord of Immortal Scripture City didn't know everything that happened here. This undoubtedly told everyone how much the city lord indulged Huang Tianhua and how much he valued him. Seeing that Han Fei was about to become a pool of mud and crawl on the ground, a figure suddenly came out of the crowd. They saw that this figure was wearing an ordinary green Daoist robe with the Hunyuan sect's symbol on it. The figure's aura was also Daoyuo Golden Wonderland, but it made everyone feel very strange. It wasn't that the person looked strange. Not only was he not strange, but he was also very handsome. The reason was the Taoist robe. As early as 600 years ago, the Taoist robes worn by the disciples of the Hunyuan sect Daoyuo Golden Wonderland had become a blue uniform. Even the other disciples of the Hunyuan sect widened their eyes in surprise. This figure didn't release any aura, but the moment he came out of the crowd, Huang Tianhua activated the laws of heaven and earth, and the immortal scripture's aura that pressed down on Han Fei suddenly froze. At the same time, Han Fei, who was on the verge of collapse, also froze. The sound of bones being crushed disappeared, and his gradually bent body stopped moving down. Even his fluttering hair, dripping blood, and dripping cold sweat completely froze under the pressure, as if time and space had stopped moving. An absolutely still scene. However, this figure wearing the Hunyuan sect's old-fashioned Taoist robe casually strolled into this absolutely still space, as if he was stepping on the pulse of heaven and earth. At this moment, all the voices of discussion disappeared, and all eyes were focused on this figure. Even Huang Tianhua's mind was completely taken by this figure, and his face was full of shock. It's him! Huang Tianhua, who was the first to wake up, thought of a figure that overlapped with this figure. Chapter 1481. Impossible. His aura and imprint have been completely erased. It's impossible for him to appear here. So what if he is? So what if he isn't? No matter who it is, don't even think about interfering in my business. Huang Tianhua immediately denied his guess. Although he was shocked by the other party's miraculous methods, he was not afraid. However, he did not immediately make a move. He wanted to see what the other party was going to do and how he was going to do it. It seems a little like Li Mubai back then? Li Mubai. So similar. Someone thought to himself. There was no lack of people in the crowd who had participated in the opening of the immortal scripture's sacred land that Chen Hao had participated in. Although this figure was no longer the empty-eyed, lifeless Li Mubai who was immersed in a state of madness, and his temperament had also undergone an astonishing change, his angular and handsome face had not changed. Unfortunately, the people who recognized him only felt that he looked like Li Mubai. Like Huang Tianhua, they concluded that it was impossible for him to really be Li Mubai. Buzz. When the figure gently pressed a hand on Han Fei's shoulder, the frozen world suddenly shook. Blood dripped and cold sweat slid down, and the world returned to normal. The laws of heaven and earth and the aura of the immortal scripture began to circulate at the same time. However, the space around Chen Hao and Huang Tianhua automatically avoided them. Invulnerable. The true invulnerable. So powerful. Who is this person? He looks almost the same as Li Mubai back then. The silence was broken by horrifying voices. That extraordinarily handsome figure with eyes as bright as stars clearly still did not release any aura, nor did he activate any energy, but the endless laws of heaven and earth and the immortal scripture automatically avoided him. There was no doubt that this was the true invulnerability. Insignificant skill, not worth mentioning. That's just 1/10,000th of my pressure. Or you. Could you be Li Mubai's brother? Huang Tianhua stopped activating his pressure and coldly stared at the newcomer. Unfortunately, the person who came didn't even look at him, completely ignoring him. Instead, he stared at Han Fei and asked indifferently, "Is Master well?" You? Your senior brother Mubai? Han Fei immediately felt a lot more comfortable under the pure and mysterious energy, but he still stared at the person who saved him and asked with surprise, disbelief, and joy. At this moment, everyone's eyes were also locked onto the person who came, including Huang Tianhua. The person smiled and nodded gently in response. Li Mubai. It really is Li Mubai? Countless people cried out in surprise, and countless people sucked in a breath of cold air. Senior brother, you really are senior brother. Master is very good, very good. Master also said that I may never have the chance to see you again in my life. Master also said that maybe when I step into the great world of Xiandi in the future, I hope to meet you, senior brother. He said that as long as you see me and sense my aura, you will know my relationship with you. Han Fei said with great excitement. Others didn't know, but Han Fei knew that although the remarkable skills he cultivated were taught by his master Duan Ziyu, who was also the 5th Grand Elder of the Hunyuan sect, they all originated from his senior brother Chen Hao, the visitor from outer space. Li Mubai. You are really Li Mubai? Ha! I didn't expect you to be able to come back. What are you doing here? Looking for that bitch Nguyen Tan Lan? Well, if I can't find her, I will use you to vent my anger. Boom! Li Mubai, who was also Chen Hao, hadn't looked Huang Tianhua in the eye since he appeared until now. At this moment, his whole body suddenly shook, and a terrifying pressure gushed out in an instant. Huang Tianhua's crazy laughter came to an abrupt end. Puff! Before anyone could react to what was going on, Huang Tianhua directly spat out a mouthful of blood, and his body was instantly pressed down. On the other hand, the 2 lackeys beside him directly let out a series of cracking sounds. They could not even scream as they directly crawled on the ground like a pile of mud. Blood flowed everywhere. It was obvious that their physical bodies had collapsed and their yuan spirits had been crushed. They could not move at all. Roar! Huang Tianhua's expression became extremely shocked, but immediately burst out with a roar. The space between his eyebrows suddenly twitched violently, and his body instantly straightened up. Very strong pressure, very strong strength, worthy of being a visitor from outer space. But do you think this can intimidate me, Huang Tianhua? Now, kneel down and acknowledge me as your master. I can spare your life. Buzz. It was also at this moment that a stream of light suddenly broke through the air, and in an instant, an unbelievably terrifying pressure pressed down from the 9th heaven. This was the suppression of an absolute realm, and countless cultivators present directly knelt on the ground. Greetings, City Lord. Greetings, Controller. One by one, they exclaimed. The moment the City Lord of Immortal Scripture City appeared, he directly sent out a wave of energy, dispersing the pressure that Chen Hao exerted on Huang Tianhua. He said, Tianhua, you can't do this. You have persisted until now, how can you let your emotions affect your decisions? No matter who it is, no matter what trouble it is, don't you still have me? For such a small fry, it is indeed not worthy of me using my strongest strength. However, this time when the Immortal Scripture Sacred Land opens, I will complete it. At that time, I will use my strength to kill this kid with my own hands. Take him down and lock him up? This? Tianhua, this person may be a mighty figure of the 3 realms after all, needless to say. Just a mighty figure of the 3 realms. Under the celestial venerables, in the eyes of Huang Tianhua, they are all ants. Do as I say. Huang Tianhua was extremely cold. This caused all the cultivators of the chaotic boundless world to widen their eyes in shock. They could not believe what they saw and heard. This was the City Lord of Immortal Scripture City, the controller of the chaotic boundless world, but Huang Tianhua seemed to be talking to his subordinates. Okay, what was even more incredible was that not only was the City Lord of Immortal Scripture City not dissatisfied, he even agreed. Li Mubai, is it really you? The City Lord of Immortal Scripture City looked at Chen Hao and asked. An incomparably powerful aura, while speaking, also locked onto Chen Hao's aura, blocking all directions of escape for Chen Hao. He did this because when Chen Hao came to Immortal Scripture City, he had actually escaped his perception. If Chen Hao had not taken the initiative to appear, he would not have known. This was undoubtedly a very terrifying concealment ability. Long time no see. Chen Hao smiled slightly, his eyes surprisingly calm. No one could see the change in his mood at all. However, the previous conversation was clearly heard by everyone. However, under the terrifying pressure of the City Lord, They could only see, hear, and think. How could Li Mubai not be afraid at all? Han Fei was so angry that his whole body trembled. He looked at the city lord with eyes full of anger. In any case, he did not expect that the controller of the chaotic boundless world would be so weak. However, he was also imprisoned by the city lord's pressure and could not make a sound. Chapter 1482. Long time no see, hee. The city lord of the immortal scripture city looked at the calm Chen Hao and chuckled. His eyes no longer had the awe he had for Chen Hao. On the contrary, there was a faint disdain in his eyes. Back then, I erased all your imprints and aura. After so many years, I didn't expect you to come back. However, what surprised me even more was that you, the reincarnation of a mighty person, are still in the Daoist Golden Wonderland. It seems that you haven't improved much? Thinking back to the past, how much awe did this old guy have for him? But now, this face was really asking for a beating, so much so that Chen Hao revealed a brilliant smile. Yes, you were scared like a dog back then and knelt in front of me. Alas, I'm really sorry to disappoint you. This old guy was just a true immortal king. Even if he was the most powerful true immortal king in the chaotic boundless world, he was nothing in the great world of Xiandi, where true immortal kings were everywhere. Not to mention King Ying, King Luo Ying and King Sword Chen Tai Su, even Qing Wanxiang and Emo Shilin were stronger than this old guy. Even Star River King Chen Hao didn't care, let alone this old guy. Crush. Chen Hao's words caused an uproar among the onlookers. The city lord of the immortal scripture city knelt in front of him? Although everyone was in disbelief, Chen Hao's expression at the moment didn't seem to be lying. The city lord of the immortal scripture city's face instantly turned into a monkey's butt, which also vaguely proved this point. You are presumptuous. What nonsense are you talking about? I am the city lord of the immortal scripture city, the current master of the chaotic boundless world. Kneeling in front of you, a little Daoist Jinxian? Old man really admires your imagination. The city lord of the immortal scripture city was extremely ashamed and angry. He didn't expect Chen Hao to be so bold. He dared to directly fall out with him and even mention this in front of him. If Huang Tianhua hadn't appeared, he would have accepted it. That was the performance of a wise man submits to circumstances. But now, with Huang Tianhua's incomparably powerful backing, things were different. He only needed to follow Huang Tianhua, and his future would be bright. Becoming an immortal emperor and stepping into the immortal world would be a piece of cake. How could Li Mubai compare to Huang Tianhua? Therefore, at this moment, he felt deeply humiliated. No matter what, he could not admit that he had knelt in front of everyone. That would be too shameful. Imagination. Chen Hao smiled and shook his head. Although I don't like fence-sitters, I understand that you are more or less thinking about the future of the entire chaotic universe. Don't say that I didn't give you a chance. Kneel down and apologize to me now. I can pretend that nothing happened. His indifferent voice was still extremely calm. However, the calmer it was, the more arrogant Chen Hao was to the point of being unreasonable in the eyes of the crowd. Even if he was an extraterrestrial visitor, he was just a cultivator of the Daoist Golden Wonderland. What kind of existence was the city lord of the immortal scripture city? Arrogant. The city lord of the immortal scripture city was livid. He looked at Chen Hao with eyes full of anger. Lock him up. The endless immortal scripture laws instantly condensed into chains of order that symbolized the supreme Tao law of the chaotic universe. They wrapped around Chen Hao. The aura of the three great immortal scriptures, the Desolation Scripture, the Celestial Emperor Scripture, and the Chaos Scripture suddenly surged out. Just when everyone thought that Chen Hao was going to be imprisoned, a bright light suddenly flashed between Chen Hao's eyebrows. Immediately, everyone felt a blur in front of their eyes. The chains of order formed by the city lord of the immortal scripture disappeared without a trace. Instead, it was replaced by a beautiful figure that exuded a cold aura but had a hot and sexy figure. What? The city lord of the immortal scripture city was shocked. What a stunner! Not bad, not bad. Huang Tianhua's pupils shrank and his eyes suddenly lit up. He said proudly, not hiding his aura. He could sense that the stunner who appeared was definitely stronger than the city lord of the immortal scripture city, even though the other party had not reached the realm of a true immortal king. However, he was not afraid at all. The person who appeared was Ruo Xian, who was in Qin Hao's mind world. Ruo Xian, who seemed to have not come out of her sadness, ignored the city lord of the immortal scripture city's shock and Huang Tianhua's burning gaze. After dissolving the city lord of the immortal scripture city's magic, she looked at Chen Hao with a trace of inquiry. Kill him. Chen Hao calmly spat out 2 words. Wait. Huang Tianhua suddenly reached out to stop him. Unfortunately, Ruo Xian ignored Huang Tianhua's words. The moment Chen Hao said those 2 words, Ruo Xian's already sad eyes suddenly became extremely cold. A killing intent that made one's soul tremble suddenly erupted. At the same time, she took a step forward and charged towards the city lord of the immortal scripture city. Wild, ferocious, and fiery to the point that it made people dumbfounded. How was this something a beauty would do? If you don't want to die, retreat immediately. At this moment, Chen Hao swept his gaze across the surrounding cultivators who were imprisoned by the pressure and said. Hearing Chen Hao's words, everyone suddenly felt the pressure that enveloped their bodies disappear and they regained their freedom. How could they dare to hesitate? In an instant, they all retreated, but no one chose to retreat too far because what happened at this moment was too shocking and curious. You're courting death. Although your aura is strong, you're only at the 8th level of the Dao severing stage. The city lord of the immortal scripture city said angrily. As he spoke, he suddenly took a step back. 10 elders with powerful auras suddenly appeared in front of him. Each of their auras was that of a true immortal king, but they were much weaker than the city lord of the immortal scripture city. However, they were still 10 true immortal kings. At this moment, countless powerful auras suddenly flashed over and appeared in the sky above the immortal scripture city. These people were obviously experts from the sects who had brought their disciples here. Mubai, it's Mubai? 2 of the figures revealed shocked and excited expressions the moment they saw Chen Hao. Who else could it be but the 5th Grand Elder Duan Ziyu and Li Mubai's original master, Tian Wanxiang? The 2 of them wanted to rush to Chen Hao's side, but they were blocked by a terrifying pressure restriction. At this moment, Chen Hao, who was inside the restriction seal, shook his head slightly at the 2 of them, stopping them from forcing their way in. What happened? Countless people immediately locked onto their disciples and asked. The 10 great elders. When did the 10 great elders become true immortal kings? Sensing the terrifying aura, whether it was the immortal scripture city's envoy or the sect experts who were waiting here, they were all shocked. Ruo Xian frowned slightly and stopped for a moment. She looked at Chen Hao again. Wait. At this moment, Huang Tianhua waved his hand and said to the 10 great elders. Yes, master. What shocked everyone was that the 10 great elders of the immortal scripture city actually bowed and responded, calling Huang Tianhua master. This shocked countless experts who had rushed over, but at the same time, they were puzzled. Any one of the 10 great elders of the immortal scripture city was comparable to the sect master of a top sect. And now, they had all advanced to the true immortal king stage. What kind of concept was that? But they actually called Huang Tianhua master. Chapter 1483. Miss, you're from the great world of Xiandi, right? I'm Huang Tianhua, from the immortal world. Soon, I'll step into the great world of Xiandi. I like women like you. Follow me in the future. Huang Tianhua stared at Ruo Xian with burning eyes and said proudly. That condescending and unquestionable tone, the confidence that everything was under control, as if no one would refuse his words. It was a pity Ruo Xian didn't even look at him. She just stared at Chen Hao, waiting for Chen Hao's decision. Kill them all. Chen Hao didn't even frown and said coldly. 10 true immortal kings who were much weaker than the city lord of the immortal scripture city. At best, they were just cannon fodder that added a little difficulty. After receiving Chen Hao's order, Ruo Xian didn't hesitate and advanced again. She wasn't afraid of the strongest city lord of the immortal scripture city. So what if there were 10 more weak true immortal kings? She stopped just to know Chen Hao's intention. Attack together, kill. You're courting death. The 10 elders, who were already waiting, saw Ruo Xian attack directly and sensed the terrifying aura. How could they dare to hesitate? I saw that your aptitude was good and let you follow me. It's a blessing that you've cultivated for thousands of generations, but you don't know what's good for you. Li Mubai is at most the reincarnation of an immortal emperor. In front of me, he's just an ant-like existence. If you stop now, it's not too late to join me. Otherwise, you'll regret it. When Ruo Xian and the 10 elders were fighting, Huang Tianhua said angrily. From the beginning to the end, he, who was so awesome, was completely ignored by Ruo Xian. This caused him to feel extremely displeased. However, Ruo Xian's appearance, figure, temperament, aptitude, realm, and strength all moved him. This was something that had never appeared in the chaotic, boundless world. Moreover, Huang Tianhua was very clear that such a woman was rare even in the great world of Xiandi. What was even rarer was that Ruo Xian still maintained her primordial yin body. Of course, the most important point was that Ruo Xian was Li Mubai's woman. Huang Tianhua could not swallow the fact that he did not get Nguyen Tan Lan and was almost killed by Nguyen Tan Lan in the evil spirit. It was a pity that he could not find Nguyen Tan Lan now. At this moment, the appearance of Li Mubai undoubtedly gave Huang Tianhua a better vent. To be able to get Ruo Xian, who was more powerful and more perfect than Nguyen Tan Lan, was undoubtedly better than getting Nguyen Tan Lan, who did not have a primordial yin body. Chen Hao did not speak, nor did he look at Huang Tianhua. However, at this moment, a bright light suddenly bloomed between his eyebrows again. In an instant, a beautiful woman, who was not inferior to Ruo Xian but had a very different temperament, came directly to Ruo Xian's side at an amazing speed. It was as if she had gone through thousands of running-in times. She did not seem to feel that there was any sudden movement when she cooperated with Ruo Xian. In an instant, not only did they suppress the 10 elders, but even the city governor of the immortal scripture city was also under their attack. This figure was naturally Ruo Lan. The moment Ruo Lan and Ruo Xian joined forces, the power and pressure that burst out shocked everyone. Roar! Boom! Then, what was even more unexpected was that Chen Hao's eyebrows bloomed again with a bright light. As the light rushed into the void, a resounding dragon's roar suddenly broke out. At the same time, an indescribably terrifying pressure swept out. The world suddenly darkened, and the entire space was shrouded under a huge figure, covering the sky and the sun. What is this? Daoist Golden Wonderland? Heavens, how can the Daoist Golden Wonderland have such a terrifying aura? Even my soul is trembling. Fortunately, its pressure is restricted by my own realm. Is this the reincarnation of the ancient Dragon King? At this moment, countless exclamations broke out, and these exclamations were undoubtedly the experts of the sects and forces who had rushed over, as well as the top experts of the immortal scripture city. How could the genius disciples of the Daoist Golden Wonderland speak? Their souls felt like they were being imprisoned. Heavenly Dragon? Huang Tianhua, who was arrogant and domineering as if he could control everything, was shocked at this moment. He took several steps back and cried out in fear. As an existence of the upper three heavens in the immortal world, how could he, who had already awakened, not recognize the appearance and aura of the Heavenly Dragon Clan? Although the Heavenly Dragon Clan's foundation was not yet established in the upper three heavens, they were an existence that could move unhindered in the middle three heavens. In the upper three heavens, ordinary experts did not dare to provoke them. How could Huang Tianhua dare? The incomparably huge Heavenly Dragon's original form only appeared for a moment before it suddenly turned into a human form. It went in front of Chen Hao and bowed like a servant. "Greetings, Master." Chen Hao nodded slightly. After responding, he finally looked at Huang Tianhua and said, "You want to do whatever you want just because you came from the upper three heavens? Before you awakened, Although you were annoying, you were still in the category of a human. After you awakened, you were not a human anymore. With such a temperament, no matter how strong you are just trash. Little Tsong, I'll leave it to you. Chen Hao's voice was still indifferent, but at this moment, in the eyes of everyone, there was no sense of pretentiousness. Strong, that was true strength, enough strength to look down on Huang Tianhua. Because of Tsong Longyuan's pressure. At the same time, because of Huang Tianhua's shocked appearance. Yes, master, please don't worry. Tsong Longyuan cupped his fists and bowed in response. Then, he took a step forward and went directly in front of Huang Tianhua. A wild and fierce aura, along with a bone-chilling killing intent, erupted from between Tsong Longyuan's eyebrows. The golden godhead's pressure rolled out. Just a trash from the upper three heavens, and you dare to boast in front of my master? Impossible, impossible. You are the reincarnation of the heavenly dragon, the spirit of all living things. How can you recognize him as your master? Huang Tianhua's eyebrows twitched violently, and the godhead's aura began to bloom under Tsong Longyuan's pressure. He thought that the 10 true immortal kings and the city lord of Immortal Scripture City were enough to suppress Ruo Xian and Chen Hao, and victory was in his hands. Unfortunately, it was just a few words, and Ruo Lan, who was not inferior to Ruo Xian, appeared. What was more terrifying was that the strength of the two of them combined had more than doubled. They directly suppressed the city lord of Immortal Scripture City and the other 11 people. However, at that time, he still did not panic. Even if the 11 people were killed, he believed that no one could trap him, and before he left, he only needed a little time to kill Chen Hao, who was only Daoist Jingxian. But now, the reincarnation of the heavenly dragon, the spirit of all living things, and with such a powerful godhead's pressure, actually called Chen Hao master. I really admire your courage. I'm just the reincarnation of the heavenly dragon, and in front of master, I'm barely qualified to be his ride, and you're afraid? If you knew that the son of heavenly Lord Jiuxian was killed by master with one hand, how would you feel? Chapter 1485. What? Impossible. Impossible. Huang Tianhua was terrified and suddenly screamed. At the same time, his throbbing glabella finally erupted madly, completely activating the godhead. Unfortunately, this kind of godhead pressure was nothing in front of the heavenly dragon's coercion. It was also at this moment that Tsong Longyuan made his move. The moment Tsong Longyuan made his move, everyone's attention was attracted by the terrifying screams. They looked at Ruo Xian, Ruo Lan, the 10 great elders, and the city lord of Immortal Scripture City. Rumble, what? Countless people screamed, almost unable to believe their eyes. The 10 true immortal king elders were annihilated by the terrifying attacks of Ruo Xian and Ruo Lan almost at the same time. They screamed and turned into a cloud of blood mist, their physical bodies collapsed, and their primordial spirits were bound. The most powerful city lord of Immortal Scripture City, although he escaped the terrifying attack, was bathed in blood. His old face was filled with incomparable horror. Impossible. Impossible. Especially when he saw Tsong Longyuan completely suppress Huang Tianhua without any suspense, his eyes were filled with endless regret as he murmured. He immediately gave up resistance and knelt on the ground with a plop. My lord, I was blind and looked down on you. I only did this because I was pressured by that shameless Huang Tianhua. I didn't think that my lord was the one who could move unhindered in the celestial realm. He's worse than a dog in front of you. My lord, please spare us. We did all this for the sake of the billions of living beings in the chaotic Great Thousand World. Such a speechless scene forced Ruo Xian and Ruo Lan to pause and look at Chen Hao. At this moment, the surrounding cultivators were all dumbfounded. Was this really the city lord of Immortal Scripture City, the master of their chaotic Great Thousand World? Previously, when Chen Hao said that he had knelt in front of him, although everyone saw that Chen Hao did not seem to be lying, they could not believe it. Now they had no choice but to believe it. Rumble. It was also at this moment that Tsong Longyuan, who had long been fully awakened and had undergone the tempering of the great world of Xiandi and had been greatly improved in Qianhao's abnormal mental space, destroyed Huang Tianhua's physical body in just a few moves. His huge dragon claws directly suppressed the shackles of the godhead that was about to escape. Then, with a flash of his figure, he appeared in front of Qianhao, waiting for his punishment. Chi 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 chi. It was also at this moment that numerous impatient figures flew out from between Qianhao's brows. They were Yin Xian, Zhou Qinglong, and Xiang Tiange. Qianhao directly absorbed Huang Tianhua's godhead into his glabella and said, "Since you guys are pleading for him, he can be spared from death." "Thank you, boss." Yin Xian and the others bowed to Qianhao at the same time and said. Even the effeminate Zhou Qinglong looked serious. This was because they all knew that Qianhao did not have the intention to kill. Once he moved, no one could stop him. However, this time, he spared the life of the city lord of Xianjing City because of them. Shao Xian Qinglong. The city lord of Xianjing City said gratefully. He looked at Yin Xian, Zhou Qinglong, and the others as if he had seen the closest people to him. Tears streamed down his face. "Fuck, old man, can you stop pretending? I know that your acting skills are good, and I know that you really did it for the chaotic boundless world, but this time, you really played the wrong role and followed the wrong person. Why don't you thank boss for not killing you?" Zhou Qinglong came in front of the city lord of Xianjing City and said gently. The city lord of Xianjing City had cultivated the 10 great evildoers. Whether it was in the past or now, he was their elder. However, at this moment, Zhou Qinglong had to remind him. Because Qianhao only said that the death penalty could be avoided. "Sir, don't talk nonsense, open the soul residence." Qianhao coldly interrupted the city lord of Xianjing City and said without hesitation. "Soul residence." The city lord of Xianjing City's expression changed. "City lord, boss told you to open it. The celestial venerables of the immortal world are nothing in boss's eyes. Why would he care about you?" Yin Xian said in a deep voice. "Okay, Qi." When the city lord of Xianjing City had no choice but to completely open the soul residence for Qianhao, Qianhao sent out a wisp of divine sense into his glabella. Immediately, the city lord of Xianjing City's expression changed. Finally, he sighed softly and calmed down. "Thank you, master, for not killing me." The city lord of Xianjing City bowed and said. Qianhao ignored him and floated directly to Duan Ziyu and Tian Wanxiang, who were still immersed in great shock and had not recovered. Qianhao bowed. "You can't." Fifth Grand Elder Tian Wanxiang hurriedly bowed to Qianhao and stopped him. "A teacher for a day, a teacher for life. Master, don't be like this." Qianhao smiled slightly, completely different from his previous cold self. "Senior brother." Han Fei, who had a conflict with Huang Tianhua before, looked at Qianhao excitedly and shouted, rubbing his hands nervously. He had heard from his master that his senior brother was an unimaginable existence, but when he really saw him, he didn't expect him to be so powerful. Although his senior brother didn't make a move, he was only Daoist Jinxian's senior brother. In his mind space, there was an existence that could kill the city lord of Xianjing City, and there were also the 10 great monsters who were once famous in the chaotic boundless world. To be able to conquer them, how strong was his senior brother? After Qianhao smiled at Han Fei, he looked at the 5th Grand Elder and said, "Master, is there no news of Qin Lan in the Hunyuan sect?" No one knows when she broke through the demon barrier and stepped out of the Hongmeng domain. It's just... The 5th Grand Elder looked at the city lord of Xianjing City as he spoke. "It's me. I planted a seal on her body, but I didn't sense her coming out. Her aura only remained a little when she stepped out of the Hongmeng domain's exit before completely disappearing." The city lord of Xianjing City said tactfully. "But actually, Master knows that you shouldn't be Mubai. When your physical body collapsed in the sect, perhaps it was when you truly awakened. The sect master and Qin Lan's master know this, and Qin Lan can't forget you. Master speculated that she might have gone to the demon abyss." The 5th Grand Elder suddenly transmitted his voice. "Demon abyss." 2 hours later, Qianhao gave the 5th Grand Elder, Tian Wanxiang and Han Fei a good fortune and left directly, coming to the demon abyss that he had been to before. Chen Hao sensed the old god's aura in the Star River tunnel that was much fainter than before, and slight ripples appeared in his tranquil heart lake. Old god, this guy. What kind of existence is he? With the improvement of his experience, the awakening of his inherited secret skills, and the refinement of the godhead, Chen Hao's knowledge had undoubtedly reached a level where he could look down on the rest of his life. But the more so, the more he felt that the old god was powerful and mysterious. At the same time, an emotion that existed in the depths of Chen Hao's heart became clearer. Phew! With a long sigh, Chen Hao's terrifying perception spread out. Chapter 1486. At the same time, his mind was also immersed in a soft aura. It was the aura of Nguyen Tan Lan's primordial Yin. However, when Chen Hao and Nguyen Tan Lan parted ways, the primordial Yin had been sealed in the depths of his body and had never been used again. This primordial Yin was of a very low level to the current Chen Hao. It was even of no value to him. However, when he felt the faint, soft aura, Chen Hao's state of mind fluctuated slightly. Naturally, the figure of Nguyen Tan Lan appeared in his mind. What he did not understand in the past, he now understood. What he could not see clearly in the past was now clear. Nguyen Tan Lan was a strong woman who approached him in order to reach the peak of martial arts. Even when they parted ways, she did not show any weakness. Unfortunately, in Chen Hao's eyes, she was a woman who only wanted to reach the peak of martial arts. She was a woman who could be ruthless and let go of everything. Nguyen Tan Lan had always thought that Chen Hao was immersed in a state of madness and had never truly awakened. It was also because of this that Nguyen Tan Lan was so strong. All kinds of coincidences and misunderstandings led to the current situation. Otherwise, Chen Hao knew himself very well. With his character, it could be said that he would definitely leave with Nguyen Tan Lan instead of staying. It's really here. After a long time, Chen Hao looked in the direction of where they were standing and said with great certainty. He sensed Nguyen Tan Lan's aura. Although it was very weak, so weak that it almost did not exist, under the influence of Nguyen Tan Lan's primordial Yin aura, it still could not escape Chen Hao's abnormal perception. Since there's her aura, it's easy. Trace it back. Chen Hao let out a groan. Nguyen Tan Lan's primordial Yin floated out of her body. At the same time, immortal rays burst out of her body. Mystical runes merged with the primordial Yin. The entrance of the tunnel began to vibrate strangely. A moment later, the primordial Yin flowed like ink, and under the effect of a series of mysterious runes, it slowly outlined a graceful figure in the void. It was Nguyen Tan Lan. She stared quietly at the entrance of the Milky Way tunnel. Her gaze was bitter and distant, as if she wanted to see the other side of the starry sky. After an unknown period of time, the scene changed. Nguyen Tan Lan's figure directly turned into a stream of light and rushed into the remaining Milky Way tunnel. I hope it won't take too long. If that's the case, it'll be easier to find her. Chen Hao also turned into a stream of light and chased after Nguyen Tan Lan. Chen Hao knew very well that it was almost impossible for Nguyen Tan Lan to enter the chaotic universe through the Milky Way tunnel. First, this was not the real Milky Way tunnel. It was just the remnant aura of the Milky Way tunnel, and it started from the hands of the old god. Now, many years had passed, and its aura had become weaker. More importantly, it was only at the end of the chaotic universe. After going a certain distance, one would find nothing, just like the highest elder. Second, Nguyen Tan Lan was just a practitioner who had just stepped into the Grand Mist Supremacy realm. How could she compare with the highest elder? What Chen Hao was most worried about was that Nguyen Tan Lan's aura had completely disappeared. In that case, even if he used the divine sense to trace the origin, it was almost impossible to find Nguyen Tan Lan. Moreover, Nguyen Tan Lan was very likely to be lost in the chaotic space. Back then, Itataichi's abnormal flying machine was lost in the depths of the chaotic space. If it had not met the highest elder of the Hunyuan sect, it was almost impossible to step out of the chaotic space. The chaotic space was a domain that even a true immortal king could not completely conquer, let alone a practitioner of the Grand Mist Supremacy realm. Are you all on your way back? In the immortal realm, Yi Lan looked at the people in front of her in surprise. Yes, Master. Master, why haven't you entered the immortal realm during this time? And we met some people we didn't know. Si Xian asked. Along with Si Xian were Chen Shui, Helian Wuzi, Chen Ling, Chen Yan, Shenin, Du Jing, and the others. They were all born in the chaotic universe in the immortal realm. Although they had been in Chen Hao's mind during this time, they would enter the immortal realm from time to cultivate. The yin and yang dual gods, moving side by side, was the best way to cultivate. In Chen Hao's mind, the speed of their improvement was a bit too shocking. The freakish space-time laws and the cultivation environment comparable to that of a lesser immortal realm allowed everyone's strength to improve at a tremendous rate. Chen Nan, Coiling Dragon, Du Jing, and the others in the Grand Mist Supremacy realm had all reached the point where they could sever their Dao. However, this was no trivial matter. With their current strength and talent, although the chances of failure were very small, once they severed their Dao, it meant that their Dao was set in stone. It could not be done casually. You've met them? Well, at least 1,000 people have entered. It's not strange that you've met them. I've been busy with these matters during this time. I didn't want to tell you before, but after all, I've recovered to the true immortal king realm and everything is still under control. Those are the spirits of all things, right? Si Xian asked. How did you know? Fatty, Chen Hao told me, Si Xian said. Chen Hao had received this information from Yang Luyan in the immortal realm. The spirits of all things that had appeared in the ancient chaos Great Thousand Realms were more numerous than the great world of Xiandi, and more complex. Not only were there spirits of all things reincarnated from the immortal realm, but there were also spirits of all things reincarnated from the divine and demonic realms. How did Hao know? We're not sure either. Master, he's very powerful and mysterious now. You should ask him directly if you have any questions. We're all in his mind now. Si Xian said. Yi Lan looked at Chen Shui and the others, who also shook their heads. Why didn't he enter the immortal realm? We're not in the Star River Tunnel. He's traveling through the chaotic space. What? Yi Lan was shocked. He hadn't contacted them for a while. How could there be so much information? Yi Lan felt that many things must have happened, and they were beyond his imagination. Phew, you should tell me in detail what happened during this time. Didn't you say that Hao would only come out after a long time after entering the Emperor Star's secret realm? Yi Lan started, and Si Xian told him how Chen Hao had returned from the Emperor Star's secret realm early, as well as what had happened during the ranking competition. Even though Si Xian's words were simple and straightforward, Yi Lan's expression was still agitated and shocked. When Si Xian talked about how she had become King Ying's disciple, and how Chen Hao and the others had been reunited with King Ying, Yi Lan couldn't hide his excitement. Chapter 1487. After a long conversation, Yi Lan finally understood the situation of Chen Hao and the others. He proposed to set up a sensing rune in the chaotic space at the place where Chen Hao had triggered the golden scale to transform into a dragon and shattered the void as the core point, waiting for their return. Everyone also learned about the current situation of the ancient chaos boundless world from Yi Lan. The awakening of the spirits of all living things, especially the spirits of all living things from the immortal, god and devil realms, had caused the recently unified vast thousand domains of ancient chaos to once again become turbulent. The terrifying talent of these spirits of all living things had also shaken the faith of the practitioners of the vast thousand domains of ancient chaos to the killing god Chen Hao. The original galaxies were forced by Yi Lan's strength. Although there was no open competition for the controller's throne, they basically had one or more spirits of all things with unlimited future that they had to support. Si Xian's third life, Xiaofeng, was still in the 10-direction territory. The situation was unclear. So, I'm afraid many spirits of all things from the 10-direction territory have entered. Chen Hao, who was shuttling through the chaotic space, looked at Si Xian, who reported the situation to him, and said calmly, "Should be. After all, the spirits of all things that appeared were basically from the Daoist Golden Wonderland. Stepping into the 10-direction territory to advance their realm is also something they must do. My master's suggestion is, don't stay in the chaotic space for too long." "Okay, I'll try my best," Chen Hao said softly as he stared at Nguyen Tan Lan's shadow that was fading away. After sending Si Xian back to the mental space, Chen Hao thought for a moment and let Ruo Xian, who was currently the most powerful person with him, temporarily replace him to control and follow Nguyen Tan Lan's shadow. This shadow was formed by Chen Hao using a powerful inheritance unique skill to trace the origin. It guided Chen Hao's direction. As for its speed, the faster Chen Hao was, the faster it would be. Therefore, it took Chen Hao a few hours to help Ruo Xian control the phantom temporarily. After that, Chen Hao entered Ruo Xian's mind world. Then he focused all his attention on the Godhead space. "Oh God. What are your orders, Master? I don't dare to order you around, but please do me a favor." Master, you don't have to be so polite," Old God said awkwardly. "I know that you might be suspicious and wary of me, but I have already told you everything I know." Old God's mind could be said to be connected to Chen Hao. Even if he was separated by Chen Hao, he could still grasp Chen Hao's thoughts. During this time, Chen Hao did not seal off his perception of the outside world. Therefore, when Chen Hao said this, Old God knew that Chen Hao was suspicious of him because of the galaxy tunnel. "I know. Therefore, I will not seal off your perception of the outside world. Perhaps, you and I are both under its control. What do you think?" Chen Hao smiled faintly. This kind of expression, this kind of smile, made Old God nervous. As the person who was most familiar with Chen Hao, how could he not know that this was the beginning of their estrangement? "But, Master, don't think like that. Although I don't know what is going on, as you awaken, I will know more. At the very least, since I started following Master, it has never forced me to do anything that would harm you." Old God said, "That's right. But even after I awakened my inheritance and refined Gu Xian's heavenly venerate Godhead, I still don't know about you. Or rather, what kind of existence is it? It can't truly separate you from me. I believe that you can't truly leave me, right? That year, when my true self underwent nirvana, I thought you were gone. After all, that was true destruction. My soul, physical body, and soul palace were completely destroyed, but you were still there. The only explanation is that you and it are in my soul origin imprint, but you don't belong to the origin." Cough, cough, this should be. Old God said awkwardly. He really didn't know. "You know my character. I don't like to be controlled by anyone or anything. Even if it's harmless to me, I won't be willing. So, when I'm strong enough and have the ability to uncover the truth, I'm afraid that you'll become my enemy uncontrollably. This is not something I want to see, but it seems that neither of us can change it. No, that won't happen. Master, you have to believe me. Although I don't know what is going on, I can feel that it has no malicious intent towards you. Is that so?" I'm sure," Old God said. He wanted to explain further, but a mystical power appeared in his mind at this moment, causing him to forget what he wanted to say. It was as if he had never thought of it before. Similarly, even he himself did not know that the mystical power had appeared before. Chen Hao naturally didn't feel anything, and it was impossible for him to feel anything. "All right, let's not talk about this. I want you to cooperate with me to refine a batch of flying machines. The materials are all ready-made, and the divine ability runes used are all up to me. You only need to refine according to my instructions." Chen Hao shook his head and changed the topic when he saw that the unperturbed God did not answer his question. "Yes, Master," Old God replied in a deep voice. Chen Hao didn't say anything else. With a thought, the ores and materials that he had accumulated in the Emperor Star's secret realm and over the years appeared around him like mountains. The knowledge of refining immortal pills and magic treasures had already awakened in Chen Hao's mind. However, at this moment, Chen Hao was only in the Daoist Golden Wonderland. Even if he had fully comprehended the mysteries, It was impossible for him to fully display them. At this moment, Old God's usefulness was highlighted. Because now, Chen Hao knew that Old God had borrowed the power of in his mind to refine weapons and pills. The so-called natural alchemy furnace, natural flying machine, and whatnot were all fake. Let's begin. After Chen Hao and Old God's minds were connected, he said in a deep voice. As he spoke, countless materials flew up, and dense immortal qi rolled over. Meanwhile, the Old God had transformed into a gigantic cauldron. Countless ancient and profound runes that contained the supreme truths of heaven and earth were carved on the inside and outside of the cauldron. At an astonishing speed, the cauldron began to absorb and spit out vast amounts of immortal energy and mineral veins. The refining began. This was the first time Chen Hao was refining a weapon after awakening the legacy secret art, and it was refining a flying machine. In the vast and boundless chaotic space, if Nguyen Tan Lan's traces were not completely cut off, then it would be fine. However, if he couldn't find a trace of her origin with her primordial yin qi, then he wouldn't be able to find her in a short period of time. After all, it was Edo Tai Chi who had drifted for 10,000 years. Therefore, Chen Hao wanted to refine the strongest flying machine he could currently make. Mending the day before yesterday. Chapter 1488. Thousands of years passed in the blink of an eye. Powerful warships floated quietly around Chen Hao. In front of Chen Hao stood a 5- or 6-year-old boy with a metallic luster all over his body. He touched his arms and legs excitedly and said, "This is great, master. Xiaoji finally has a body. Arms are arms, legs are legs. I'll change." Buzz. The boy was Xiaoji number 1, who had awakened his spiritual intelligence. He was so excited that he suddenly shone with a metallic luster again. The boy's body suddenly changed at the speed of light. "Brother Hao, he." Seeing Xiaoji's appearance and the sound it made, Chen Hao almost choked. Who else could it be but Chen Shui? If it weren't for the faint metallic luster and life origin, even Chen Hao wouldn't have been able to see any difference between Xiaoji and Chen Shui. Senior brother. Xiaoji can be master's woman and can also be master's brother. As long as I imitate their life origin aura and realm aura, no one will be able to see through Xiaoji's disguise except for those who are really familiar with me. Xiaoji then turned into a coiled dragon, which was also very lifelike. As it spoke, it turned into Chen Yan, who had a mischievous look on her face. Even though this was all within Chen Hao's expectations, it still made Chen Hao sweat profusely. This is the perfect combination of advanced technology and Dao. Xiaoji is a self-derived spiritual intelligence. It seems to already have the life origin aura. I really didn't expect. Old God said in surprise as he looked at Xiaoji, who was constantly changing. This time, Chen Hao had been the one in control of the refinement process. Old God was the perfect executor and had realized Chen Hao's intentions to the best of his ability. Refining 10,000 battleships was already enough to shock the Old God, not to mention spending 100 years to modify Little Wisdom One. This was something that the Old God had never imagined before. The combination of advanced technology and Daoist magic could be so perfect. Stop dazzling. You can show off again when you can completely restrain the metallic aura. Chen Hao stopped Xiaoji and looked at Old God. You didn't expect this, and neither did I. The combination of advanced technology and Daoist magic has lowered the standards of Daoist magic to a large extent. For example, Little Ji's transformation ability is definitely not inferior to the ultimate form of the Great Change technique, and its imitation ability is incomparable to the Great Change technique. That's true. Moreover, this is still limited by your cultivation level. If you are stronger, you only need to refine it again to make it stronger. This is equivalent to being able to mass-produce experts. You're oversimplifying things. In fact, although Xiaoji has its own consciousness, its high-tech and Taoist techniques are all refined. Firstly, there is a limit to the number of times it can be used. Secondly, it needs to be replenished regularly. So, in many ways, it can only be considered a powerful offensive weapon. More importantly, refining it took 100 years and a large amount of mineral veins and energy. Master, none of that is a problem. After all, Xiaoji has already realized how to repair its runes. The only flaw is that it can't absorb the energy of heaven and earth on its own, and needs you to provide it. Maybe you can figure it out? It'll be difficult. It needs to understand Tao and be compatible with the laws of heaven and earth before it can be done. That means that Xiaoji has to be able to cultivate and understand Tao on its own. This may not be too much of a problem for Xiaoji. But if that's the case, it can't be considered a mass production expert. That's true. But no matter what, it's already very impressive. That's about it. Let's leave it at that. 1,000 years. Almost 4 months have passed in the outside world. Xiaoji, take over control of all the warships as soon as possible and be on standby. Chen Hao stepped out of the divine persona space and came out between Ruo Xian's eyebrows to take over. Phew. Thank goodness you came out. If you didn't come out, we might have lost contact. Ruo Xian said with a long sigh. Her expression was obviously very tired, but there was no coldness and depression between her eyebrows. Not bad. In less than 4 months, you actually comprehended 10%. Otherwise, if it was just controlling it, you would have been completely cut off from her aura, Chen Hao said with a smile. You said I only comprehended 10%? Ruo Xian said in surprise. You think it's not enough? This is a heavenly venerate unique skill. Although it's the simplest type, the laws of heaven and earth it contains are not simple. With your realm, it's already very rare to be able to comprehend 10% of its mysteries. Of course, if you and Ruolan can merge into one, you might be able to increase it by 5%. Chen Hao said with a smile. As he spoke, his gaze was fixed on Ruo Xian's eyes. Don't test me. Ruolan and I will always be best sisters. She is her and I am me. Even if because of this, we can't step onto the peak of martial arts, it doesn't matter. Alright. Actually, I just want to tell you that even if you merge, it's not as scary as you think. The most important thing is how you do it. Alright, you can go in. I should be able to hold on for a while. Of course, if you help me comprehend it, I might be able to hold on for longer. Now, you need time to cultivate your Yin spirit. You don't have to be polite with me. Ruo Xian said. She had no interest in the topic of merging with Ruolan. No need. Your speed is too slow. If this continues, I'm afraid you won't be able to reach the vicinity of the ancient chaos boundless world without thousands of years. I don't lack this time. I can't rush it, Chen Hao said. Ruo Xian didn't insist after hearing Chen Hao's words. She knew that Chen Hao's ability to travel through space was something that even a real immortal emperor couldn't do. His speed was indeed not something she could compete with. After Ruo Xian entered Chen Hao's mind, Chen Hao's speed directly increased countless times. He began to travel through space with the ability to travel through space. However, he didn't really start to travel through space. Instead, he was at the edge of traveling through space. This was the only way to maintain his lock on Wen Tanlan's aura. 3 days later, Chen Hao, who was flying at high speed, suddenly froze and stopped. The aura of the Milky Way tunnel has completely disappeared. It was originally the remnant aura of the Milky Way tunnel. After countless years, as they went deeper and deeper, it couldn't last long under the terrifying energy storm of the chaotic space. Without the aura of the Milky Way tunnel, she has no direction. According to the time she might have stepped into this place and my analysis of speed, I could have caught up to her. What a pity! Chen Hao thought to himself. You're tuning in to the Wang Lin's Journey YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.